It's like we're live. Let me go through the checklist here. Okay, hit the live button. Wow, I'm actually on screen this time. Let's see if I can get these posted without forgetting to do that. We'll be pretty good, huh? Now, I'm gonna start making me a little checklist. I know as you get older, you start making lists of everything you do and need to do and got to think of. And there goes YouTube notification. Those work out real well, but a lot of times those Facebook ones, man, they're still out there somewhere. As you get older, you start making lists and checklists and things you got to do. And at least I need to. I have to. I forget everything. So my desk is now covered in notes, man, post-it notes. If you want to get something somebody needs for an old man, buy them some post-it notes. Because if they're anything like me, they'll need them. So y'all know the drill. I was glad to see. As soon as we get a few comments in here, let me see. Let me make that a little bigger, even bigger. So now StreamYards have been listening to me. They've increased the size of our comment box here on screen. And they even did something I didn't ask them to. They added the font size so you can make it bigger so people could actually see it. So let me know how that worked. Can you all see it better on your phones and stuff? I guess once we get a few more comments, we'll be able to see. But what's going on, Dark? What's up, Clint? Yeah, let me know if you can see these better, Clint. It'll help everybody see cross-platform. Hey, John, because a lot of people were able to. You can good because a lot of people were not able to see comments and stuff that people from other platforms. So people from Facebook couldn't see the YouTube comments and vice versa. So now we made it bigger. That's the biggest it goes right there. That's big and wide. Here's the way it used to be. So here's the way it is now. So that's a pretty good improvement. We that's a start. I don't know if tall would be better. Tall and medium. Is that better? Or is that better? Because I guess tall and medium probably be a little better. Oh, it can't, can it? It can't be smaller. I mean, this is what it used to be. That's what it used to be. So I don't know. Yeah, that's what it used to be right there. But now I think tall and medium might be the way to go. Because big takes up, you only see a couple of different, but right there, I guess the tall makes it look, yeah, it's more narrow, but you can read more of them. See, this way you can only read like 3 up, and when I get behind, this will be a little better. But if you do big, you can only read, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you could read more. Let me know. Hey, what's going on, Cat? Come on, Mash Brothers. All right, so let's go tall medium. I think that works pretty well. But yeah, they're listening at least, and they're making improvements. They said more to come, so hopefully we can get them to go even a little bit wider, maybe half the screen. Because for some people, in the top streams that they do, being able to see, even more of that screen and more of the comments would be even better. Because a lot of times things feed off comments. So, but hey, I'm just glad they're starting to listen and make improvements. Because this is definitely a big improvement over that. That used to be what we had, and now we can do that. Or that. But I like that, but it needs to be big, wide, and tall. And I've tried to click to it once, But I think medium, I guess, medium font and tall, we can squeeze the most in. Small and tall, that's just too small. And big and tall, it limits it again. You might as well just go medium and wide and get the same effect. But I think that's better. Definitely can see more. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. If it could get that large and go higher, taller, up the screen than 3/4 of the way, maybe 4/5 of the way, just underneath, you know. But that's my next thing. I love what y'all done, but we need more, more. Make it bigger, make tall, 20% larger and 20% wider. We need we need wide and tall at the same time. So yeah, it's definitely better. So they are listening. So that's awesome. And yeah, Cat, I remember that. It was probably me and you and Roger, I guess, on that maybe. I don't know if Roger was on that night or not. He might have been. He might not have been. How you been? All right, let me share these links. Yeah, that's my little mouse in the background rustling around. What are you doing, babe? Sound like you're wadding up a potato chip bag or something. I don't know if it might, that noise canceling might probably eliminate a lot of that, but it was pretty loud. All right, sharing the links. So I'll probably be a little bit shorter tonight. I've got to try to get myself together and get some all my stuff together. We're going to in the morning. I leave for Arkansas for the Music and Moonshine Festival down there in Clinton, Arkansas. Hope everybody that can make it down in that area can. It's going to be a lot of fun, and there's some famous singers and all that stuff there, and that's all great for those that are fans. And I've heard the gal. I think from The Voice and everything, so that's going to be awesome. But for me, the highlight's going to be Pumpkin Chunkin contest, man. It's going to be awesome. The air cannons and the trebuchets that they build for the Pumpkin Chunkin. You've probably seen videos and that on Discovery shows and stuff before. So that's going to be awesome. I've always wanted to watch that live, and now we get an opportunity to. Man, that's going to be cool as hell. So I'm definitely stoked for that. Looking forward to it for sure. It's going to be a lot of fun. I've always been amazed at how far they could shoot those things without them coming apart. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Plus, it's a lot of fun. It's a good festival, good music, great people. That's probably the best thing they have, their resources, the people that are there. It reminds me so much of back home. I feel right at home there. It's going to be a good time. And they feed us well. They've got an area, I guess, a little kitchen, they're on the fairgrounds. And these gals come in, and there might be a few guys back there. I'm not be all sexist and everything, but they're mostly gals. They cook up a storm, and it's like grandmother's cooking. It's not just heating stuff up, man. It's like grandmother's home cooking. It's good. Last year, I came home probably about 10, 15 pounds heavier. It was awesome. Very, very friendly, great people. Look forward to always going there, man. It's a good thing. And we got Appalachian United Initiative with us, and Helene Rising. They're going to be down there. We're going to be collecting and probably selling some T-shirts for and all the profits go towards that again to help the victims of Helene who still, are in need. They've not gotten a lot of government help and a lot of assistance that they need, and there's still people that are displaced from Helene. So 1 year later, almost, well, a couple months ago, I guess, when it happened, but 1 year later, there's still a lot of people, hopefully not still in tents, but I don't know, maybe. So maybe the tents we took them, they're still living in. That'd be crazy, wouldn't it? Yeah. Horrible, horrible situation. But yeah, we're also doing a thing called something about U-Haul. Raymond's got something going together about the U-Haul. Shoot, where's my mind? Let me share these last couple of links so I can go over to the militia page and have a look. See. And before we get any further, I do want to put prayers out there for Marshall E. Shanks. She's broken her ribs and feeling really bad, and also continued prayers for Ginger Crumb, who is still in the hospital or back in the hospital. I haven't got the word yet, but I think she had to go back in. So prayers for her and Tom. Everything's okay with them and she gets better. They said some kidney and urinary tract infections or something to that effect. I'm not. Hopefully Ginger gets better soon. And Marcia. Both of them awesome people. Almost let me share them all. All right. Yeah, it's much better. Much better seeing the chat tall like that. If we can just get it tall and wide, we'll be doing good. Doing some bananas, huh? Well, I hope you left plenty of room for that cap because, man, they make the biggest cap I've ever seen. I don't know that I've ever seen anything make a bigger cap than bananas. Man, it's getting cold here. What's the temperature? We got an outside cat that's sick. We've been bringing it in. It was a stray. It wouldn't allow us to even get around it until now. And also prayers for my niece Lauren. She just had her first baby. And if you hear my phone going crazy tonight, like that, it's because everybody in the family is having some major discussions. It's been going crazy for the last 30 minutes. So she's had her baby, and I'm excited to see more about that. We'll check into that later. But yeah, we'll be around a little short this tonight. We'd probably go about 9:30 or 10. Definitely ain't do 11:30, 12 because I got to be in bed early. I've got to get stuff together and I got to get out of here because getting to Damon's is like 3 hours and 20 minutes. It's like 100 miles from here to Damon's by the crow fly. But to drive all the back Kentucky roads and the back Tennessee roads, I'm gonna have to put this phone over here because that's gonna happen all night. Yeah, we might try. Yeah, it's been doing this for a while now. Everybody in the family is very excited. I think that. Yeah, I'm right here now. But yeah, it's great to hear that Lauren and Zach had their baby. Yeah, I sure did. And then I ended up getting a stainless one because after I considered the price tag and everything involved, I just decided to get stainless and copper mesh just because it's so much less maintenance and less. It's not as good, but it's for most people it'd be hard to tell the difference, in the taste and all. Uh, I'm sure. Hang on, I thought I had that sound turned down. Let me see if I can open this up and mute my sounds, period. Because it's been doing that for the last half hour, I tell you. Everybody's excited. I did this, did that. And yeah, there, that's got them on muted. All right. Now, if I can remember to turn that back on, I'll be doing good. What? Huh? Anne's got her headphones on. She's talking loud. Hey, babe. Hey, babe. Huh? That's rather loud. What? What an asshole. I can hear you talking. What are you watching? Oh, really? Yeah. What are you watching? Heartland. Oh. I just want to make sure you weren't talking to me. You didn't hear. I don't know if y'all heard her or not. She's watching. What is it? Huh? What is it you're watching? Heartland. Heartland. I guess somebody on there did something she didn't like. You're like, what an asshole. Like, God damn, sure she ain't talking about me. What did I do? But yeah, it's easy to do. Look at all those shiny, those highly polished copper pots. Man, they're nice. Yeah, I'm the same way, Clint, you know. Hello, Miss Lisa. How are you tonight? So at least we got bigger chat now, you know, and people from Facebook can see the YouTube comments and vice versa. I just wish it was tall and wide so we can go that way or that way. I can't decide which is better. That, I guess, wide. Because I got these 3 comments there and 3, maybe 4 comments there, but is it harder to read? Which do y'all like better? Because what I see is both are good, but do you like it tall or wide better? And wide with big letters like that? Let me know. I'll scroll down so I can see. Yeah, the mesh has a lot more surface area, so it's very effective. Even if you use copper, you know, I would probably still use copper mesh because you know what just the the liquid, the steam that comes into contact with the outer walls is only a fraction of what's going through. So when you're forcing all that steam and through that copper mesh, you're getting a lot more contact and a lot more sulfide removers. So um, wide with big letters like that. There we go. Then good deal. But yeah, I'm glad they did that. So that's definitely helping people see because that's the way it used to be, and we've gotten to there. But if we can get them to go double wide, it's a Kentucky thing. Get a little double wide in there. Yeah, it'd be a lot better and tall. Get wide and tall. That's what we need. But at least now I won't have people saying, "Who are you talking to?" I don't see anybody asking those questions. So it's not a ghost. I'm not imagining it. There's actually somebody there. It's just on a different platform. So awesome. Yeah, we'll keep a good wide. It'd be nice if we could do wide and tall at the same time, but hey, it's progress. It's progress, man. I'm glad they did it. I'm glad they're listening. So I think for 2 or 3 weeks in a row now, I've always left it in the comments. They ask for feedback and how was it and what can we do to make it better. They're good company. And so the last few weeks I've been saying, we need larger comment. Love the showing comments on the stage, but we just need to be bigger, for people that are looking on their phones and stuff. And boy, they listened. They gave us 3 sizes and even font options that I never even thought of. So they went a step ahead more, and they did say that they're going to improve on that more. So I'm going to recommend definitely, if we can have it wide and tall, That would be awesome. So definitely listening, and that's good for a company like this. I'd say I'm not the only one. I'd say other people, since they've added the comments on stage. I guess they've had that for a month now, and so doing good, doing good. You show Latino speed. That's awesome. I'm from Eastern Kentucky originally. I live in Kentucky. Where are you from, brother? So yeah, I'd say 26-gallon stainless with a 3-inch column would be awesome. Sounds like an awesome setup for sure. But yeah, the pot, it's you can use the mesh. You can still use the mesh with a copper pot. But Florida, welcome from Florida. Yeah, I was born in the '60s, brother, early '60s. Electric is what everybody's going with. I haven't done the electric thing yet. I've kind of held off. I've always done either propane or stovetop, or I start out on a fire. But yeah, stovetop or propane, and you can only do stovetop. And every time I mention that, I have to disclaim you can only do it on ones that don't cycle on and off. That just when you turn it on 3, it stays illuminated to a certain heat and it doesn't cut on and off. And but mine, when it goes to when it's low, it will cycle, but when it gets to like 8 or 9, that's when it gets to high and it doesn't cycle. So that's awesome, and it works out real well. My new stove, it's I'm having both my big elements kind of going out on me intermittently, but the old stove I still have, and I'm gonna hook it up down here in the basement and use it for canning. Right, canning. Yeah, the electric elements is the way to go. I kind of held off because I was real skeptical about scorching. I was like, how does you're not sticking an element and all that, and it not scorch somehow. But sure enough, it doesn't have an impact on the flavor at all, and it's a lot quicker. So you can run a dual element. Well, for our size steels, for 30 gallons or less, you can run a single or dual element. I know a lot of people run up to 55, 6,500 watts, and some people are running dual elements. And when to heat it up, and when it starts dripping, they cut it back to one element, or they just dial back the electricity going into both elements and take it down. I will say get an SCR type box for it instead of a PID, because it'll deliver a constant stream of electricity, and it's kind of like the stove. It'll stay on and constant on, and every how much what number dial you are is exactly how much electric it's going to feed without cutting thermostatically on and off, cycling on and off. But yeah, definitely electric's the way to go. So also, if some apple mash is turned to vinegar, can I still be run or toss it? Well, I mean, you can run it. It'll help clean the steel, and you can see if you can distill off. You're not going to distill off the vinegar, but sometimes it just has a light vinegar smell, and it's not as bad as you think, and it'll clean up all right. And then sometimes it's just too vinegary, but it's not going to hurt anything to run it. We recommend cleaning your steels with vinegar. So worst thing that can happen, it just help clean things up a little bit. So, but I'd go ahead and run it and see what I got, and go from there. And if you get some decent alcohol out of it and has a little bit of flavor of vinegar, maybe you could put it on, run it a second time. And in this case, normally I'd put it back on the, back set and do it like a cognac, but maybe you could proof it down with some water to help dilute some of those flavors and run it again, maybe a third time to help dilute some of those flavors out and separate that vinegar and alcohol. So, but yeah, if it doesn't come out, it's at least you tried, and you'll still be cleaner. For a 20-gallon still or 26 like that, I'd probably go 240. I mean, you could go with a multiple 120. You just have to make sure it's on separate circuits, right? So, you're going to have some extension cords unless you're fortunate enough to have two different circuits in the same room and plugs. Most people having to run an extension cord, and then they run into using a 16-2 extension cord, and it gets hot because they're running 20 amps on it. Yeah, that's another mistake a lot of people are making. But yeah, it's I'd say for the larger watts like the 5500, yeah, it's going to be some 240 volts. But a lot of people running like dual 5500s. I think if that's about as high as it gets before it makes a pretty significant jump in cost, to the 6500 plus elements. So two 5500s is what you want. Yeah. What's going on here, Billy? No problem, Michael. Thanks for asking. Yeah, the 240 volts is going to be much better. Definitely going to be better for you because with 120, with one, it takes a long time. Then I'd just say, probably. I've actually know people that try to do both. I've heard of people doing both that run propane to get it up to temp with their electric, and then just run electric after they get it to a certain temperature and cut the propane off. And there's a lot of different ways you can do it, but you got to worry about the heat coming off up and off to the sides where your wires going in. I was kind of skeptical of it, but I mean they said it's working fine for them, so I think they put something there to kind of shield a lot of the heat from coming up. I don't know if it's cheaper or not, Clint. I mean, I don't know if it uses less watts or just I don't know how that works. I don't know if it uses less actual electricity when you do the 240, but I know it's much more efficient, to do the 240s. But and you can if you go above a certain wattage, you have to have the 240. So, but I mean, I guess you could have three 120s if you can, got good extension cords and got three different circuits you could run to, or something like that would be fine as well. But I think basically the elements aren't a lot of difference in cost between 25, 35, 45, 50, 500 watt. They're not a few bucks, maybe few 4 or 5 different dollars and difference in them. And at least the ones I've looked at, you want to get the stainless ones too. Don't just get your regular hot water heater elements. Get a Denord stainless or something decent quality, stainless element. They tend to last a lot longer. I've seen some of those others that actually I've got a picture of one somebody sent me when I was talking about it before on a podcast. They said, no, you don't want to do elements. They showed me this. My answer was, probably not good if you're distilling on the grain. You're right. Yeah, it was that bad. People, they kill me. It's like, man, why would you even think that would be okay? I hope they're not watching. But I've got that picture somewhere. I'll show it. Hopefully I've got it saved where I can get to it pretty easy because they can't tell me I didn't hide that thing. It's probably buried in my pictures. I saw it not too long ago, and I think that's when I was going through some of my pictures looking for something else. Daggone it. Maybe it's in here. Let me look around. Yeah, here it is. Oh, goes right over the chat. But anyway, let me hide the chat here for a second. Yeah, look at that buildup on these. That's a stainless element. But look at the buildup on it. That crusting off there. Or maybe that's just a regular water heater element and they were, no, look in the bottom of that pot. You can see all that. But I guess they had a lot of residue. That's one of those Denords that kind of wave, and that's a, looks like a 5500. Yeah, look at that. You know, that scorches. You know, that's tasting awesome. Yeah, 240 is going to be a little more problematic to set up because you know it's going to require bigger wires setting up and a bigger breaker coming off of it. If you're outside, you can go over there to your air compressor or something. I think those are 40 amps. That's for a heat pump or something on the outside. 30-40 amp box. A lot of people have different electric going outside, or if you're close to your service panel coming in, you easily inside. I guess at your what's a regular. You could run close to your clothes dryer, maybe sit up on top of the clothes dryer and just plug it into the clothes dryer. I think those are 50 amps, aren't they? Yeah, it doesn't look good. Doesn't look good at all. What's going on, Jeff? Good to see you, brother. How you been, man? Yeah, it's hump day. Yeah, some of the steels have like a false bottom in them where you can set your bag up and keep it away from the element. And 2 hours heat up, 6 hours total. Oh, for one or the other, yeah, it's that's the difference between 240 and 120. Yeah, it's significant. It's a lot of people say I'm just going to save a little money and do this 120, and they spend the money, and maybe for $20 or $30 more, they could have got it, except for the wire. And I'm not talking about the inconvenience of running a new wire. I'm talking about just for the actual SCR and the elements. It's really not that much more to go with the 240, but yeah, it's a little bit more when you consider what you got to do. But if you got like a stove, and you could kind of go behind the stove and get you a wire and plug in where this where your stove plugs in or your clothes dryer plugs in. I think clothes dryers are, yeah, they're 240, aren't they? Yeah, I think so. 25500s take about 30 minutes to heat up. 25. That's pretty good. Yeah, my 18 and a half on the on that stovetop I was talking about that has the constant heat. It's about an hour. So that would sound about right. It's a 2900 watt in the front, or I'm sorry, 3200 watt in the front. The new one's 2900, and it doesn't have the dual element. That old one, it's in induction heating too. So it's a lot better. That old stove is, but I think it's probably 20 years old. But it's still working perfectly. Imagine that. The new stainless one's already got 2 switches intermittently going out on me that I'm going to have to replace. So, but that's not too much. I was looking at that up last night, like $24 for a small element switch and 50 for a large one. Yeah, it's still pretty pricey. And I mean, both the switches look pretty much identical. They just handle different wattages, volts, and that much more for a large element, 6 to 8 inch element. But they're 29 and 19 or 24 or something like that for the small elements. But the larger one, it has 3200 watt element, and then I think 19 on the small ones in the back, plus the warmer in the middle. And so I just turned all three of those on because my pot pretty much covers all three of those. That 18.5 does, and it does pretty well. It'll heat up in about an hour. Constant heat, doesn't cut on and off at all, and I can cut it down a little bit to 8 and still get good constant heat from it. So yeah, no doubt, man. I'm just glad that these still had the dials, instead of all the digital stuff. Because you get all the digital when those boards go out, like my oven's digital and then the stovetop's dial. If you have to replace that digital fat board in the middle, that's like 250 bucks versus 24 for the little knobs and switches, and you know, quite a bit difference. But yeah, that old stove, that old Frigidaire is much better than the new one, and it doesn't. I don't think the new one cycles either. A lot of people say their stoves will cycle on and off on high, but this one on high, it just you get full power. That's it. It doesn't. Maybe the thermostat's messed up in it or something. But it doesn't cycle at all. It just constant heat. It's glass top, so it's not the coil top type. I don't think any of those don't cycle. I think all those cycle on and off for sure. But this is the infrared underneath the glass top. It's not induction, but infrared, and it doesn't cycle on and off. And you don't want cycling because that causes a lot of smearing. So yeah, that old Frigidaire, that was old when I moved in here, and it didn't match any of the other stuff I brought, the refrigerator I brought, but and it had a stainless um, dishwasher and a white stove and an old dated kitchen, and then I didn't bother me any because I planned on updating the kitchen at the time, and here we are 13 years later, and I still hadn't updated that kitchen, but got a nice stainless range in there. It just doesn't work half the time. So it's all stainless now, at least, but that new range doesn't work about half the time. But yeah, definitely looking forward to going to Arkansas this weekend. It's going to be quite a trip, but should be a lot of fun. Hoping to see a few of y'all there. Away from Ozark's going to be there. Hopefully, Big Chuck will be there. He was there last year, so hopefully he'll be back there again this year, unless he's filming for Discovery. I don't know, but hopefully he'll be there. Motherboard, yeah, those main middle boards, 250, 350 bucks. That's crazy, isn't it? Yeah. And I don't know. I just don't understand why a 6-inch element and it shows the range. It's like 1800 to 2400, watt for a small element versus a switch for a larger element that looks identical, except it does from like 24 to 2800 or something like 2900, because that's about what that one is. And they're almost twice as much. It actually twice as much. So it's crazy. You don't need a timer and a clock anyway. That's what watches are for. You can put a wall clock above it. But yeah, I was glad to see it wasn't anything major. but I still gotta take it apart and make sure that there's not a wire issue or anything. I'm assuming that it's a switch based on just it being an intermittent issue. But I pulled up a YouTube video on it and watched the dude, and real good video, showing all the different things. Didn't tell me much that I didn't know. I was just hoping to get some part numbers because the actual video showed the exact range that I had. And I was just hoping to get some part numbers without having to pull the back off and see what they said. And very good video, but reading through the comments, it's like, well, I hate to be that person. And when somebody starts with that, they really don't hate being that person. That's why they're there. But he went on to ream the dude for enabling all these people to work on their own stuff and end up causing fires and potentially burning up loved ones. And I mean, it was just laced with stupidity and troll. What do we call the male Karen's Kens? Or yeah, it was bad. Yes, sir, Bruce. Yeah, the cracked corn from the feed store is basically just a yellow dent #2 corn. Sometimes the grade, there might be a little cob in there versus something that people that grind up meal, but most of your cornmeal and things like that are used from the same yellow dent #2 corn that's grown, probably definitely the most grown corn in America. It's used for livestock, it's used for deer corn, it's used for tortilla shells and cornbread and all that. They do use a lot of the white corn and some different corns now, some different varieties of field corns and stuff that aren't sweet corns. But yeah, it's perfectly good. Actually, Tractor Supply Producer's Pride is a decent yellow dent. Everything I've always got from them has been good and clean. I've not seen a lot of cob in it. In fact, if you've got a grinder, it's probably better just to get the whole kernel and use it as you need it than the crack, because the crack will it'll oxidize on you, and it'll kind of has a little shorter shelf life than the whole kernel. But yeah, and I'm sure some places will have a little more cob in it than others with the cracked corn. They definitely tend to get a little dirtier. And they say dirtier, I don't mean dirt. I mean corn material in there, cob, when you get the cracked. But yeah, it's perfectly fine. Yeah. It's good to know. Yeah, I think the Nord makes the wavy ones like that. Now that's up to you, brother. Some people like rye, some people don't. That's 100% up to you. But what you do need to do is either use not for sure if you're familiar with the process, but you've got to convert those starches. So you've got to cook that corn and gelatinize it. So you got to cook it at like 190 degrees, or steep it with boiling water that's like 210 hard boiling water, and just pour your grains into there, and maybe in a cooler or something where it'll hold those temps for about 90 minutes to a couple of hours. Always don't use all your water. Kind of set a little bit to the side and keep it boiling. That way you can add a little bit at a time, as you check your temperatures, and keep it up to temp, because it has to keep that temperature for it to gelatinize that quickly, or else it's going to take a little longer. But once you get it gelatinized, then I recommend using what's called a high temp amylase, liquid amylase, that you can get at most brew stores, off Amazon, and I guess off Philbilly and um, North Georgia and a few other places. So I'd recommend getting it off of Philbilly, or probably really easy to free shipping if you've got Prime Amazon. You can get some off there, or Firm Solutions here in Kentucky. They sell too, but they sell larger bottles of it. A little bit more expensive to buy the larger bottle, but it'll last you longer. And I guess per ounce and not probably going to be cheaper. But yeah, you get that high temp amylase and break down those very complex, long string carbs and break them down into smaller segments. And then when it gets down to about 100, well, depending on the glucose that you use, some glucose you add at 120 to 40, and some you add it around 100. So it just depends on what kind of glucose that you're using, liquid or, but yeah, there's, and use that to help debranch those oligosaccharides or oligosaccharides that you created with the alpha by debranching those. But yeah, if are you going to use any malted grain, or you just like the rye? Why does it say you were live with my girlfriend, but she is playing pool with me and she doesn't know you? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Well, I've got my own girlfriend, so I doubt it's the same one. Live with your girlfriend. Where does it say that? It's crazy. Yeah. Yeah. When you buy deer corn, be cautious, read the labels and make sure it doesn't have the pellets. And the preservatives we talked about, I guess about that last week. They spray a propionic acid over top of it to keep it nice and shiny and preserve it and make sure it doesn't. If it does, you can always wash those kernels. Just kind of spray them off and clean them up a little bit and get that propionic acid off there. And I doubt that would have impact on flavor, but you never know, and never know how that might affect your yeast and your pH. But probably a good idea to get it off there. But yeah, always check your corn for ingredients. Make sure it doesn't have pellets, especially when you start buying feed type corn and deer corn and things of that nature, and sweet feed. That's a biggie for a lot of people. Like the sweet feed shine, and be very, very careful when you get the sweet feed shine. I think it's probably best just to make your own, and probably just as cheap to buy some good food grade molasses and crack your own corn and pour it over it, and that way you don't have as much because they put a lot of stuff in there, nutrients and minerals and stuff that aren't good, and that will have a huge impact on your flavor. So most of your yeast will have a dosage. Will tell you different yeast. So probably bread yeast you're going to use more than like wine yeast and stuff. Most of the wine yeast packets are like, well, they a gram or so, a couple of grams, or can't remember how many grams there are, but they come in like a packet, and one packet is for up to 5 gallons. So if you're doing 15 gallons, you'll use 3 packets of it. But if you buy it by the bricks, you'll just have to go by the dosage. It'll tell you how much, how many teaspoons or something per 5 gallons. So you just kind of follow that dosage because they're all going to be a little bit different. So, my yeast that I'm using now, and even all the different yeast I use now have different amounts that you add. So check the label, and if you don't see anything on the label, look at the manufacturer's website, and then they'll tell you. I wish I could give you a definitive answer, but it varies amongst all the different yeast. But I will say that when you buy the small little square packets, those are generally for up to 5 gallons. So if you're doing 4 or 3 gallons, you'll still use one whole packet. And then if it's over 5, if it's 6 or 7, you'll need 2. So, but always do that and use starters, and hydrate and start your yeast and activate it. A lot of people don't call for that, but you'll find out how viable your yeast are and how lively they are, because a lot of people dump that in there and the next day they go in and they think they've got a stuck fermentation, but it really never started because the yeast is not viable, or there's not a lot of live ones in there anymore. So definitely read the label, is the best I can answer you on that. But most of those small packets, if you got the small little, I think they're like 1 gram packs. I think all mine's upstairs, or I'd grab one for you. I used to keep them in there, but I keep them in their fridge now. And keep them refrigerated. If you're going to be using it in the next 6 months, keep it refrigerated. And if it's going to be more than 6 months, you can freeze it and keep it for up to a year or two, or probably more. But before you use it, when you pull it out of the freezer or the fridge, let it sit for a while, an hour or two outside. Don't just go from the freezer to the hot pot or to 100-degree, or a 90-degree pot, or it'll probably, have some impact on it. It'll stress your yeast. So let them kind of thaw out first. But good question. Yeah, but if you got the small packs, should be 5 gallons per pack. Yeah, and you can do the reverse step. You can as your mash is cooling off, when you get to, I think with rye that's not malted, it's like 130. Let me pull up the chart here. I think it's 130 degrees. I always keep this chart handy, and if you want one, you can use your phone, take a picture of it, or you can get it at Moonshine Militia in our files, or in DIY Shine and Stuff's files. But let's see here. I think it's about 140, 30 or 40 degrees for the rye. And let's see. Are you kidding me? I know that chart's in one of these. Here we go. This is one chart I use most. But yeah, rye is about 142.5. So around 140 degrees, you can add your rye. This chart, it's at the upper dot there, and again, this chat's kind of getting in the way. But maybe I can move me over. But anyway, you can get this chart out of the file section on the in the Moonshine Militia, or in the DIY Shine and Stuff page, and we can always keep that on hand. I keep it in my phone because I can never remember. And what you do is you add in all these grains. You can add them at the far right, so it looks like a dumbbell. It's got a ball at each end, right? So you'll add it at the higher end of that scale, and it remains active. It'll actively produce enzymes and stuff as in that range. So that any in that range, you can get it in there and convert. But yeah, for rye, it's about 142.5. Your malted barley right at 155. Now let me get the chat out of here so I can see there a little better. Yeah, right at 155 with your barley malt. Go in and keep it right at about 150. And I did work on some of the mixed grain how to. It's a little tougher because I'm trying to do it. A, if you're using liquid amylase, B, if you're using powdered amylase, and C, if you're using malted grains, and D, if you're using a combination of liquid and malted grains, which I recommend. It's not going to hurt even if you're using enough rye or malted wheat or malted barley or malted rye to convert all the sugars. I would still add a little bit of high temp alpha just to keep it more manageable when it's thicker and warmer, and the glucose there at the end, just to help supplement. You don't need to use as much, so you can use like half as much as you normally would, especially on like the glucose. But yeah, I think it'll be good to do both. That way you get for sure a good conversion, because the amylase doesn't impact the flavor any. You're not going to notice it in your flavor, so it's definitely good to use. And the Sebflow and the Seb Disco, when you're using, when you got a lot of glutens and the gumminess. If you've done a lot of high rye and high wheat or all malt, you'll notice that you get a lot more. It's instead of a gelatinized, it's a kind of a goo mix, and it can be thick and unmanageable, just like the gelatinous corn can. But that's just in a different grain, and this helps break it up, and so it works real well. What's going on, Richard? Good to see you, brother. How you and Charlene doing? I'm having a good night, brother. Thank you. Getting ready to go to Arkansas tomorrow. Yeah, doing a starter too. I forgot to go where I was going with that, but doing a starter will make sure that you have Bible yeast, and it'll also give you an opportunity to breed a lot more yeast than what you would normally add with a spoonful. So using the starter with the sugar and kind of warmish water, 90-degree water, 95-degree water in a jar, put the lid on, shake the hell out of it, oxygenate it real well to help promote that growth. But make sure you take that lid back off once you do that, because once those things start, breeding, they start putting off some CO2 and it'll start foaming up on you. So you definitely want to have that lid off and set it in a big bowl in a dark, warm place, and put a towel over it, and come back about 20-30 minutes. It may foam over if it's really crazy Bible, and that's fine. That's why we put the bowl there. Just dump it in there and rinse that bowl out with some mash water, and stir it in really, really well. You want to get your mash really super oxygenated when you add that yeast, because that super oxidation and very aerobic, high aerobic atmosphere will promote a lot of yeast multiplication, and you'll get plenty of good yeast in there. And then put your cover on it or airlock it, and then it'll become anaerobic and help keep the bacterial load down. So yeah, to convert the corn, it has to be malted. But if a lot of people, now that we have the liquid high temp amylase, and it's very inexpensive to use, because you just use teeny amounts of it, man. I mean, you get a big jar, I mean, you're using minute amounts, so they last a long time, and you don't use a lot. And so a lot of people now, instead of using 6 row, they're using 2 row, and which has better flavor, and they're using unmalted, um, and because they don't need the diastatic power. But I will say that you're going to get a little bit different flavor for malt versus not malt. I like my wheat malted versus not. So, there still is a flavor difference that you're going to get between malted and not malted. But when you're dependent, or when you can rely on the high temp and the liquid glucoamylase, you can start depending much less on the amylase in the malted grains, the alpha and beta glucanase in your malted grains. So I like using the combination. I've had the best success. I used to use the powdered alpha, which is the worst, and I wasn't getting good conversion. And even I'd use that even if I was doing malt, and still didn't get the best conversion. But it's a little bit better than just malt, and you can add it you add it at the same temperature as the barley malt, and at 155 with the powder amylase, at least the stuff I got, the BSG or BGS, I can't remember the name. But yeah, they and it works better with the malted, of course. But now that we've got the liquid high temp, yeah, it's you can start using different malts, and you're relying much less on, or not relying at all. But if I do use a malted grain that's got a decent diastatic, I'll cut way back on the liquid, the high temp. The gluco, I'll still use about the same amount, because that'll just make sure that I get 100% fermentables, and get it, really, it helps a lot with the conversion. What's going on in Ireland? Awesome, brother. Yeah. So you distill some all malt there, some Scotch or some Irish whiskey. I think you spell a little different than we do. We put an E in there. I think in Ireland they don't add the we, or do they? Maybe it's the Scots that don't add the E. I think WHI is KY for some and KEY for other places. But thanks for joining us. Yeah, my family's from Ireland and Scotland, so they brought that over with them, and man, I'm getting behind. Hopefully, you stuck around long enough for me to say howdy. I'm getting behind again to talk them. I only made 2 batches. Well, that's good. How'd they come out? Awesome. Yeah, I've got a little Irish in my blood too, mostly Irish, Scottish. I've got Calls, Greers. Actually, it's McCalls and Greers and McCoy. Yeah, that's 3 of my family names, all Irish. That's a good question. I think both perform a little differently. I like the bubble plates, but I think they're both pretty effective. It's making sure that you get the size that you need. I know that the 2-inch are pretty small. So when you get the 2-inch bubble plate, you're only getting like one down comber and one, bubbler. So I don't know. I probably prefer perforated when it gets to the 2-inch size or the 3. But when you get up to the 4-inch, you've got multiple down combers and bubblers on there. So when you get to 4-inch, I kind of like the bubbles, but they both pretty much do the same thing, and use a deflegmator above it to help regulate it and keep your reflux. That way you can balance the load towards the middle of the bubble column. Yeah, 50 gallon. I don't think you can do that much. I guess it does multiply a lot, and it'll multiply if you super oxygenate your mash. It'll sit for like the first 12 hours, until that oxygen, gets depleted, and they'll sit and multiply and keep multiplying. So I wouldn't doubt it. Yeah, the plates, basically your bubble plates and your perforated plates are going to generally be for higher proof. A lot of people use it like for their vodkas and gins and higher proof distillates. And it takes some of the flavor out, but some people consider it lightening the flavor. So it depends, like on rums and certain rums, maybe lightening the flavor will be a good thing. If you get a little bit too grungy, um, so might lighten that up a little bit. So some people kind of prefer that, and it's nothing's right or wrong. It's just different. So you have to kind of play with it and see what works best for you. What's going on in Australia? It's illegal most places here too, Michael. Sure is, but it shouldn't be. I didn't know. I didn't know it was illegal in Australia. I know there's a lot of people that make it down there. Here it's illegal too, but this day and time, you got people running into the store, grabbing and going. You got a lot of crime going on that goes unpunished and uninvestigated. A lot of fentanyl and major crime and crazy stuff going on. So I'd say, unless you're really, I wouldn't recommend, selling it or advertising it. If you do sell it, advertising it like on Facebook or in social media, to the world. I recommend doing that, but I'd say as long as you keep it just as a hobby level and keep it in your home and don't talk much about it and just do your own thing. Most people, most people aren't going to say anything, but yeah, I wouldn't invite the deputies over to have a drink either. But hello from down under. That's awesome. I guess we're down under you. Yeah, some states here are legal, like Missouri, West Virginia, I think Alaska. I've heard now since I've said Alaska, a lot of people are like, oh, not Alaska. So maybe when I was reading that, maybe some tribal places that permit it, and maybe I'm sure there might be some tribal areas in the states, in some of the states as well, that allow it. But that's right, man. None of us can. We're all here getting educated together, brother. Let me take that off there so people can read the comments. I forgot to take it down. Remind me when I do that. So, but we got our comments bigger so everybody can kind of see it cross format, and y'all can see the YouTube and the Facebook comments on here at the same time. That's awesome. Yeah, the 26-gallon pot still in a 4-inch column's nice, but also get you a little whiskey head for it. Get Phil Billy or somebody make you a whiskey head for it, or make one if you handy, make one for yourself, and that way you don't get as much reflux, and you can get a little bolder flavors, a little stronger flavors carrying over. Well, there you go. Get up with Jeff. I can vouch for him. He's a real life friend. We've had drinks together. He's a good buddy. Awesome dude. Yeah, we all of us learn. We're all in here learning together. There's questions people ask that I've never even thought of or considered. So, I don't have all the answers. Clint doesn't have all the answers, but we'll if we don't have them, we'll find them. So far so good. We're able to answer most everything. And sometimes we'll have to pull up the old Google maybe to help supplement our answers with some more facts and information about it. That's one thing. I can answer a lot of questions, but a lot of times I'll pull it up on Google anyway just to see if there's certain things that I should be adding, and that I'm just not thinking to add. That I know, but I'm just not thinking to mention it. And Clint helps me out with that a lot too. He'll mention some things that I failed to think of or mention. So we work well together. Yeah, you can use whatever oats either work just fine. Yeah, and it's with the oats. It's I guess they do malted oats. I've never heard malted oats, but I'm sure they do the malted oats. I don't know what a diastatic would be of the malted oats, but I use oats a lot. And a lot of times I forget to add it as a grain. I'll do like, oh yeah, I did a 3 grain. With corn, wheat, and barley, and I forget about the 4 or 5 handfuls of oats I threw in there. So technically it's a 4 grain, but I just try to use them for any of my grain distillations. I'm always throwing some oats in there, and just for the mouthfeel and the creaminess and mouthfeel that it gives. I like what it does. Now, Clint, have you ever worked with malted oats? I've never worked with malted oats, but yeah, that Seb Visco stuff we were talking about earlier for the glucans, that works good for oats as well, because those all those get gummy. Instead of gelatinous like the corn gets, they get kind of gummy. And I mean, if you've made cream of wheat or oatmeal, you know what we're talking about. For just for breakfast, that's what you're looking at. It gets real gooey. But yeah, that Seb Visco and Seb, what's the other one? Seb, yeah, I can't remember. But yeah, both of those break down the glutens. They're beta glucanase. Yeah, with the rum washes, anytime you're doing rum washes, you definitely want to add some glucose, unless you're using a rum yeast. And a lot of these specialty rum yeasts, it's basically rum yeast because they're adding glucose to it. And the molasses generally has unfermentable sugars in it. So all those sugars have been broken down to the point where your yeast can eat them. So, you're going to have some unfermentables in there. And that gluco will help break those down. And I guess you could probably use if you wanted to, you could add a malted grain to your rum recipe to help break those down. But I think the liquid and the Seb Visco, I never can remember the name of those. I've not used them a lot, um, but I'm going to, because I want to do an all barley, and maybe an all wheat vodka and an all barley malt, because I've never done those before that way, and I've always just done percentages because it was just too damn gummy, and after talking with Clint and after reading more from, like, I think I first learned about it from reading up in the Firm Solutions and all the different amylase and stuff that they've got, and learned about those that there's a lot of that break down the glucans, and that gumminess. So I definitely want to try that. That's kind of what's limited me in the past to doing it. What? Oh, on the rum, yeah. There's just a specific type of glucoamylase that they add to the rum yeast, and it just helps break down those limit dextrins that are in your molasses. So and also when you're like, if you're taking sugar, and this is what's happened, you get a pretty basic sugar with your sugar cane, but when they cook it down and brown it and everything, it makes the sugar actually. Damn, did you see that spider just drop? What the fuck? Where'd it go? Man, they do that around here all the time. They just drop down. Creepy. So it's that time of year, man. But yeah, that thing made me forget what I was talking about. Uh, oh, with the rum amylase, yeah, the helps break down, and also you could add some malt with that to help break those down. And there's beta glucanase in your malt, and that would work as well. It might make some interesting flavors. Put a little malted wheat in your rum or something. Be pretty interesting. With the rum, just you would want just glucanase, the liquid gluco. Yeah, it's similar to double distillation, because as it dances, you've got a lot of reflux, and instead of a thumper, trapping a lot of the water, which is what a thumper, excuse me, does, and that's how you're getting higher proof is by getting that second distillation and it leaving a lot of the water behind. Um, you get actually second distillation inside that column, and a lot of that water is falling to the side, and only the hottest of vapors can make it past all that, because it's as it refluxes, it creates a cooling effect, and kind of like almost like a deflegmator within that column itself with your up and down comers. So you're getting cool water dropping down, and as that cool water drops down, that hot steam comes in contact with it and creates, and that's how you can adjust your deflegmator and your flow, um, and correct how high it's riding, in your bubble plates. So you want to load your bubble plates properly too. How much is that, John? I may know of a couple of places that you can get it probably a little cheaper than oak steels. Actually, I know of one place that sells oak steels cheaper than oak steels does it. I guess they give them a volume discount, and they turn around and sell it and charge a little bit less. So I can't say who it is. I don't want to get them in trouble. And that depends on the states. Some states you can't have a still. I mean, you can argue in court that you're using it for different things, and I guess if they don't find any, alcohol or anything around that would make it, it's going to be hard for them to prove that that was what you're using it for. But if you have, mash ready to run, you've got a lot of stuff that are shying around, then it might be a little bit difficult to say you're using it for, you know, tinctures or what's the candle making, or for what's the process where they, trying to think of the process where they used to make flavors with. But there's a lot of things that you can use a still for that's not necessarily going to be making shine. So yeah, oak stills are good. So it comes with a 3 inch. Yeah, you can get a 3 to 4 little converter. Go from 3 to 4 inch, and it will. You can set that 4 on there. I would definitely recommend a 4 over a 3 though, for sure. Yeah, oats make everything better, man. I love using them. Yeah, I'm not sure what the tater wine. I'm not sure what the diastatic would be on malted oats. I've never researched that. Let's have a look. See something new. See, I'm learning. We all learn together. Malted oats diastatic power have a variable diastatic power, but it's generally lower than base malts, 25-degree Lintner. Yeah, it's something that prioritizes flavor and mouthfeel over the enzymatic strength. So most people, yeah, are using your oats basically for that creaminess and soft mouthfeel. And it's a good way to, yeah, supplement enzymes with it. Like if you just had a malted corn. See, basically malted corn doesn't have enough for itself. So you can get maybe 80, 85%, just on a really good malt on your corn conversion. But there's still some that's going to be left out there that just doesn't fully convert, because just corn won't fully convert itself. So something like that, having the malted oats would probably push it over the top, right? And if you had enough, and give you that good flavor, mouthfeel, and help you with your diastatic. But again, with the liquid amylase, um, and you can use less. So if you've got, the higher diastatic that you've got, you can use less and less of the liquid. But I still would use it just to make sure you get that good conversion, because again, it's so little. And if you're using a little half of what you would normally use because you got them all, yeah, definitely use it so you can get that full conversion that you're looking for. Yeah, oats have, yeah, creamy, soft mouthfeel to them. Really, it's really good stuff. Yeah, remember those Seb Flow and the Seb Disco. Those are the two that really help with the glucans. When you're running with these high percentage grains that have the high glucans, like wheat and barley and your rye, especially those three, and the oats, definitely. Yeah, triglycerides, and then you got oligosaccharides that yeah. Oh, you're talking about glycerides. Yeah. Yeah, with the infusion, with the jar rigs, those work well. It's requires a bit of extra care to make sure that you don't bust your jars. I think a lot of people run into issues when they, you got to use your grill gloves or welding gloves or something, taking off those hot ass jars because those things are 200 degrees, right? So you're taking off those jars and dumping out that hot spent fluid, and then you're having to add more of the infusion flavorings. So when you do that, a lot of times, if they're not real hot, what are you going to do? You're going to crack that jar, and then you're going to be, oh shit, and then you're going to have to, go get another jar and get it on there, and it's going to be cold, and you're going to have to heat it up. But I'm going to make some copper ones, and there's nothing that says, and they've done it before. It's nothing new. It's not nothing I've invented. But about half gallon copper, maybe three quarts copper with an infusion port in the top and a drain in the bottom, and maybe a little sight glass or a little window there to see, a little portal to see, your liquid level. So when you know when to kind of change it would be is what I want to do. That way I don't have to worry about taking off jars and working my bypass and all that. I can just drain it, open up the infusion, add more, and just keep right on trucking. Yeah, yeah, yeah. With the rums, definitely add some glucose to the rums, and you'll be fine. You don't have to get a rum yeast. Just use your same old yeast that you'd normally use, and just add a little bit of that glucose, liquid or powder, and that'll work good for you, brother. Well, that's a good question. If it may have a different sweetness to it. It may, if you finish it out dry, whereas normally it's finishing sweet. Um, yeah, that's a good point. Probably have a different flavor for sure. And make sure that. Okay, had to do a little admin work there. Some people just can't follow the rules. All right, let's see here. Something else that I noticed. I've been following this lady on YouTube, and she's pretty interesting, Chinese lady, and she does a lot of different fermentation. The volume right now, but instead of using uh, molasses, using jaggery. And if a lot of you are not familiar with jaggery, it's kind of like molasses, but it's sweeter, and it's something that you can just eat as is, and it's something you just put on it comes baked like baked brown sugar almost, and you reminded me of it when you said that, Clint. I was going to mention that. I think it looks pretty interesting. That may be my next run I'm going to do, but using jaggery. So that's gonna be interesting. Yeah, jaggery is an unrefined, a natural sweetener made from sugarcane juice. Popular in South Asia, which I guess figures with the Chinese lady doing it. So she's making. It's got a molasses-like flavor, so it's a lot like a molasses, but they actually it's closer to sugar. It's crystalline, kind of like a brown sugar would be the closest thing I could compare it to, but it's not. Um, find it in solid block, powdered or liquid forms. I guess she was using the solid block and just breaking it off the solid block. But said she'd done the molasses and made rum both ways, and she said she definitely preferred the jaggery. Uh, Cost wise, I don't know. we're going to have to kind of do some cost analysis to see how expensive this stuff is by the bucket, but maybe cheap. Has anybody out there use Jaggery? Clint, you ever use Jaggery? Well, but Guppy, I hate to hear that, brother. A lot of times I get behind, so you may not have stuck around long enough to get your answer. But every time I've ever seen a question that you have, I've answered it, and I think we do a pretty damn good job answering it. And you know, I'm sorry too. You know, if you want to ask you questions, repeat it, because like I preach it every time. I get way behind, and I may not get to your questions for 15, sometimes 30 minutes, but I will get to your questions. And if you don't have enough time to wait, I'm sorry. Go ask in a group and get mixed answers. I mean, I hate to be a dick about it, but brother, we try our best here. I think we do a pretty good job between us. So I hate to see anybody leave, but you know, if you got a question, you could have posted it there and we'd have handled it. I don't. I'm looking, scrolling back here, and I'm looking for your questions and that you ask, and I'm not seeing it, brother. Did you ask a question tonight? Because I'm scrolling back and I'm not seeing your question. I'm just not seeing it. You know, I'm still scrolling and I'm not seeing your question. So I think I've answered a lot of your questions, and you know, I'm sorry, brother. You know, if you got a question, ask it though. You know, and if you don't, if I don't get to it, I might have scrolled past it. It's not intentional. Ask it again, man. Or say, damn it, answer my question. But just come on here and do that. No, man. No, we do a good job answering questions. And if that's where you're gonna be, maybe it's best you don't come. Fuck it. I hate being that way, but damn, son, Lord, ask your question. You could have done that instead of doing all that. Yeah, essential oils and all that. See, I'm back still 15 minutes behind right now. So, you know, that happens. It's hard for me to scroll through and give people the answers that they need and stay on top of questions as they come in quick. So, you know, I'm sorry, you know, but ask your questions if you got them. We'll get to them. And I don't think we've passed you over. If so, it wasn't intentional. Just ask them again. But I'd damn sure rather, you know, ask a question here than ask it in a group full of people that don't know what they're talking about a lot of times. In some of these groups, you'll get 15 different answers for a question. Maybe two of them will be right. If you're just using sugar, um, you're going to use about 2 pounds of sugar per gallon, and that'll get you about a 1080, maybe a little higher. And yeast, again, that'll be on your packet. Usually, these little 1 gram packets will do 5 gallons, up to 5 gallons. So if you're doing 1 through 5, add a packet. If you've got 7, use 2. But but other than that, they'll usually say on the package, you know, a teaspoon per gallon or a tablespoon for every so many gallons, 5 gallons or something like that. So and it does vary. So so you'll get it welded for the third one, huh? Yeah, it's been cold here too. Yeah, couple pounds per gallon. Yeah, it's kind of like a panel, I guess. Be a good. It's everything you need to buy. Wow, that's man. I may have a list somewhere. Um, there's going to be quite a bit of stuff. You're going to have to, first of all, you're going to have something to ferment in. So that's gonna be based on how large your still is. So, and that still is going to be based on what kind of liquor you want to make. So different stills, but generally a pot still is what most people start with. Up to about 20, 30 gallons is generally considered hobby size. 10 to 30. I definitely wouldn't go less than 10. It gets a bit monotonous and hard to make the cuts, and a little bit of work for a little bit reward. But so based on that, if you get a 20-gallon pot, you're going to have to get at least a 30-gallon fermenter to give yourself room for caps and things of that nature, and more if you want to do ferment more than one run at a time, which I definitely recommend doing. But there's so many things to get. You're going to need to get a proofing hydrometer. You don't have to, but it certainly helps. And these are just recommendations; they're not have tos. There's certainly a lot of things that you could, use a boat paddle instead of a drill and a mud mixer. But a drill and a mud mixer will make your life so much easier, if you use those. And so it's always better to use the drill and the mud mixer unless you're young and you want that workout, especially when you start mixing up that gelatinous corn. Man, it gets pretty thick. But you're going to need, amylases. There's a lot of things you're going to need. Let me see if I've got a little list here. Hopefully I can copy paste that. Let's see here. I'm sorry if I got a little heated when he asked that, man. That bothers me. We try our best to answer every question as best we can, and I'm not so sure that's not somebody just trying to troll me. So let's see. You're going to have other than, of course, the grains and all that kind of stuff. Having a pH meter or a pH paper to measure pH. Again, not a have to, but it certainly helps. Thermometer. Again, not a have to, but that helps. Mixing paddle or drill and mud mixer. Definitely. High temperature alpha amylase. Or powdered amylase, definitely recommended. The high temp liquid glucoamylase, that Sebflow or the Sebvisco that Clint talks about. If you're going to do a lot of just malts and or just wheats or just barleys or 100% rye, things of that nature. Iodine, if you want to, test for starches. Triple scale hydrometer to measure the sugar content. So, a lot of those are the tools. Now you'll need a fermenter that's large enough for your steel, oversized for your steel. And an airlock for that if you want to go that route. If you're going to make brandies and you want to make wines, and then you might want to consider airlocks. If you're just doing grains, probably not going to be, that big a deal. Oyster shells if you plan on doing a lot of sugar washes or rums or tequilas that pretty much rely on syrups and high sugar contents. It'll help buffer. There's other things that you can use. They make a 5.2 stabilizer or buffer. I think they call it a stabilizer. That helps keep the pH regulated. Basically the same thing, calcium carbonate. What else? Funnels, to funnel, pour things certainly helps. You're going to have some form of heating. So a lot of people use turkey fryers to start out with to heat their pots, or do them on the stove if you have a stove that doesn't cycle hot, cold. Let's see. You're going to have to decide what type, whether you're going to use a column or whether you're going to, use a cap of some sort on top of your still. So that, depending on what distillate you want, well, you go with something a little different between a column or just a whiskey top cap. You're going to need a condenser. So, in some kind of water pump to pump to your condenser to keep your flow rate going. Cold water supply, first and foremost. Maybe a little reservoir for that outside, wherever you can use a sink. You can just put a stopper in your sink and do your little pond pump from there and run it and just keep water circulating and from that. A lot of people use coolers and use milk jugs with ice to help keep that cooled off. And there's a lot of different tools. But yeah, jump in the news into one of our groups, Moonshine Militia or DIY Shine stuff, and we can show you some pictures and give you a little bit more advice and stuff on exactly everything that you're going to need. But yeah, and then learn to, I've got some recipes that I'm working on and that you can follow that are pretty simple, somewhat simple to follow, and you can use those, and and we'll get you rolling, brother. Yeah, having a big tote instead of using a sink, big plus. And you can cut a little bit more out of your tote if you want to, put some milk jugs. If you start getting, if you a lot of people will flow from it and then back to it, which makes it heat up a lot quicker. But if you had like two totes where you could just pump from one tote through your condenser to another tote, that way that warm water return wouldn't be going to the original tote and warming it up twice as quick. Then you can, go back and forth, just put all that hot water in the second tote and hang some, uh, milk jugs with ice if you need to help keep it cool. But with a tote, you'll get a lot more. You should depend on the still. You probably wouldn't go through more than just a tote. Yeah, I get behind sometimes, but I'm pretty sure we've always tried to answer their phone, answer their questions. If not, uh, ask in the groups. But he didn't ask a question tonight. So if he had a question, instead of typing that shit, he could have typed his damn question. You know, I'm not so sure I wasn't just getting trolled though. I'm pretty sure it's just somebody trolling because I've seen every question that he's asked. He's asked quite a few questions in the past. We've always answered them that I know. And if we skip by, you don't get mad. I'm trying to scroll through these. I get behind and have to scroll through just regular conversations and looking for questions. And sometimes I might skip something that I think is regular conversation just between, the people in chat. And so don't get bent out of shape and get all whiny and shit. Just ask your damn questions. you know. But I'm not sure they wouldn't trolling me. I think we try. It's you're not gonna keep everybody happy all the time. That's for sure these days, especially. But I've seen your questions before. I've tried to answer them, and again, if you got a question, you could have typed that in instead of all that shit, and you would have gotten answered as I got to that when I would have answered it. But you didn't ask any questions tonight. I scrolled through and I looked. There was not one question that you asked, so I'm pretty sure I'm just getting trolled. So much more of that, and I'll just send you on your way. I'm banning it. I don't need that shit. I come in here twice a week, set hours of my time to try to help people, and that's the thanks I get. Fuck you. That's the way I feel about it. Because there's a lot of things I could be doing, but I enjoy doing this. And if you don't want to be a part of it, then bye bye. I'm pretty sure I'm just getting trolled. Yeah, totes are great to ferment in. And that's one thing, a lot of people think they just have to get a fermenter size to their still. So I got 20-gallon still, I get a 20 or 30-gallon fermenter, and but it's best to get 100 and ferment, because that ferment will last. It'll keep between several runs, and you can just do it all at once, and that way you're not constantly mashing in, and trying to, get all that mash done. Because just pour a third of it into your still, run it, save that back set if you want sour mash, do the next one, run it, do the same, and that way you can get a few runs in for every mash in, and it makes it a little more efficient. I appreciate that, Richard. Yeah, it's like I want my answer and I want it now. Sorry, I get way behind sometimes, man. I mean, I've been 30, sometimes 40, 45 minutes behind, and just like the guy from Ireland, hopefully, he stuck around to see the answer. Some people need that instant gratification, and you know, sometimes we can, sometimes we can't. We try to help as best we can. Yeah, I think a Bever or a keg still is an excellent starter. It's 15 gallons, or Bevers. I think you can get a 13 or 18 and a half, and I think the Bever, the 18 and a half Bever is probably about 100, or I'm sorry, 225 to 35, somewhere in that range, depending on. I think Black Friday you can get a little cheaper if you want to wait for about a month. Um, but yeah, you can get a keg, pick that up off Facebook Marketplace, relatively cheap, 35, $45 generally. Uh, I'm not sure what the deposits on them are anymore. If you just buy one, and drink the beer, keep it. But you can get the columns 100, 150, somewhere in that range for them. Very generally, a lot of the same here. Let me show you a picture of them. A lot of times you can just go on. Fieldbilly's got them, and I think Amazon's got them, and a few other places have them. But why in the world? Here we go. Let's see. No way. Here we go. I got too many locations for this stuff. Get you a little column like that to sit right on top of that steel. Makes perfect little setup. You got your little deflagmator here, little sight glass. You can put your, copper mesh in here, and it'll give you a little reflux, and you can watch it dance on the copper mesh as it vapor and hot vapors and cool reflux mix and combine here. You can kind of watch it and regulate your deflag to keep it, kind of balanced here. And proof wise, you can use your deflag to adjust the proof that's coming off to a certain extent as well. Got a good little shotgun condenser on here, and for the money, for the 125 or so dollars, 125, 45, somewhere in that range where I've seen most of them. Again, Black Friday's coming up. These go on sale too, sometimes for a little less than 100 even. But when you start combining these parts together to buy separately, yeah, it adds up to be considerably more. So it's a pretty good deal to buy these all together at 125, 35 range. It's a good value, and these are pretty good parts. I've used them and bought these and actually put those on one of these. Definitely have to put these pictures all in one spot. I'm tired of going two different spots for pictures. Yeah, a little bever like this. You can take this football off and you can put that column on there. This football is great for whiskeys and brandies, and you can take this off and get a 2.5 to 2 reducer, and then go into a shotgun condenser or a jogger rig or a thumper or whatever you want it to coming off this whiskey head. But that's pretty good for brandies and whiskeys. And then if you want to, you can put this column on top of that, or you can put it on top of a keg. Um, I've got both, done both, and they both work quite well. And it's great. It's a good size. It's 15, which is not huge. It's not small. It's kind of in the middle. I think 30. Most people consider hobby up to 30 gallons. Now I know a lot of people that's got 50s that would definitely disagree with me, and I understand. But yeah, it's definitely cheap way to get in it and get your feet wet and see if it's something that you would enjoy before you chuck down 2 or 3 thousand on a larger copper still. Yeah, yeah. If you don't want to ask questions here, you can go spend about a week or two watching videos until they've had. That's one of the reasons I did this, because a lot of people do exactly that. You watch the videos, and if you have a question, or you saw something in a video and you can't remember what it is, you end up having to go back and spend hours and hours and hours trying to rewind and fast forward through the video. Where was they talked about that? Oh, it wasn't this one. It must have been another one. And then next thing you know, you're going through all the different videos that they got looking for that one thing they talked about and looking for that answer. And and it takes a lot of time to do that. So I think I always thought that having a good live question and answer like this would be great for people to ask a question and get an answer. Instead of having to search everywhere for it. And a lot of times when you ask in a lot of these different groups and stuff, you ask one question and you'll get 15 different answers. Now that doesn't mean there's one right answer and 14 wrong answers. There's always more than one way to do it. Sometimes it's good to do that just to get a perspective on how differently you can do things. But yeah, it's sometimes pretty tough to get a straight answer and quick. And I think that we do a pretty good job of doing that here. Answering questions as they come. We try our best. That's all we can do. Dedicate our time. We don't get paid for this. We get absolutely no money for this. And I'll spend 6-8 hours a week. You know, on these videos doing this and trying to help. And yeah, that's the thanks we get. Yeah, you'll just basically you're making a wine instead of a mash. So you're making a must. They call it a must. Now a lot of times, especially shiners, everything's a mash, whether it's a sugar wash or a wine must or a fruit must or a grain mash. That's technically what the three are called. But a lot of times people just use the catch-all mash. And some people be always want to correct you when you do it, but catch-all, most people just say mash. But yeah, you just use a good wine recipe. Basically you're making a wine and you're distilling a wine. And to get the fruit flavors, a lot of times, just making that wine and distilling it isn't enough. You need to do some infusions, either by adding flavors to your thumper or some infusion chambers and jars or chambers. And that'll help concentrate those flavors for you, because it is a little difficult. The distillation process is done to remove impurities. We distill water to remove all the impurities, so we just get water. And we're doing the same with alcohol. We're trying to remove all these impurities and just get the alcohol. But with the alcohol comes the water, and the water is what a lot of times carries most of your flavors. All the time, most carries a lot of your flavors, because it's easier for a lot of these flavonoids and phenols and polyphenols and all this to bond to the water molecules than it is to the alcohol molecules. But yeah, that's just doing a fruit wine mash or must, and then distilling it and using some infusion certainly helps get that flavor, because a lot of times a lot of fruit doesn't carry over well, and in those cases you can infuse. And if you're a purist, now a lot of people these days just like heck with it. We're basically just going to post flavor, and you get a lot of strong flavors that way. And if you're looking for mixed drink type flavor punches, you're definitely going to be most happy with a post flavored um, distillate. Just make you a neutral and then post flavored, or make a brandy. And you may have a little bit of that peach or a little bit of that apple, or you can, like I say, if you can tell what fruit it's made with, it's pretty successful, as far as a brandy is concerned. So but using infusers and then post flavoring, you can really get that strong flavor that most people want. And these days most people, they don't care about if it has a little post flavored. They don't care if it's clear. It doesn't have to be clear, and it doesn't have to be white. It can have some color to it. I think these days people are more interested in just flavors instead of the purity of just having it come off the tap that way. So things are changing, and in fact, very rapidly, because most of the festivals I go to these days, that's what most people want is a post flavored good good tasting flavored drink, and people are getting away from traditional brandies and straight off the tap type liquors, other than of course bourbons and stuff that are, I guess you consider that post flavoring with the barrel, and but like just white dog is getting a little less and less popular, and people are wanting more infusion flavors and grain flavors and some other things than just a straight neutral or a straight corn right off the tap. Now I will say there's a lot of people still liking the corn, but even then, if you can infuse some cream corn or some sweet corn or something to get a little bit more corn flavor. You use an immersion blender and in some of the corn, sweet corn, and cream it and emulsify, I guess, and that makes it pretty good, for your corn liquors. But yeah, you just basically when you're doing that, you're just converting wine into brandy. So yeah, I agree, man. I mean, we try our best. I don't want, but I want people that are watching to understand. You know, I wish you could see. Right now, well, that's 9:30 and it's 9:58, so I'm 20 some minutes behind right now, and it's and it's hard for me to give a good, complete, full answer. And Clint is very instrumental in helping, answer questions in group while I'm long-winded answering one person's questions. Some people are listening to me, and some people are typing questions in at the same time, and he's helping them. So we tag team. We try to he handles a lot of the text chat, and I try to handle a lot of the more long-winded answers and things of that nature, and try to explain everything as fully as I can, and try to help people understand, because a lot of times people asking questions, they just don't have the depth of knowledge yet. So I'm trying to pass that on. So if you have to ask a question again, it's not the end of the world. Just say, repeat question. I guess you guys missed it. Just be cool about it. Say, I asked this earlier. Maybe you overlooked it, you know, but at least give me 20 or 30 minutes and ask it again in case Clint misses it. We'll get you. Yeah, we'll definitely get you. And if not, ask again or just copy and paste the same thing over. How hard is that, right? What's going on down there in South Kakalaki? Is he with Jamie? I appreciate it, bro. And I just try to give a good answer, an in-depth answer. So does Clint. And he's sitting there on his phone typing, how hard it is to answer shit by typing. I got it easy. Clint's sitting there typing shit out. It's not easy for us. We take a lot of time out, to do this. So we're glad some people appreciate it. It doesn't. 15 gallons. Now, are you running the hot water back into that, or are you just exhausting the hot water? 'Cause I think when you recirculate that hot water, man, it gets it pretty hot. But if you're recirculating, you can do that with 50 gallons in a 15. Because I'm going through a lot. Oh, I see. Yeah, that could be having that creek's awful nice. But if there's a way that you can pump from the creek, and bust through that ice, but then it gets a little bit almost too cold. So then it might be good to recirculate, right, to help keep the temp up. Because really, you want 65 to 75. They find that's about the best. If you can regulate it to that point and keep your coolant temperatures between 65 and 75, or 60 to 75 in that range, um, they say that's the optimal, but it's certainly not going to ruin it if it's, a little lower, a little higher than that, or a lot lower for that matter. I mean, you might saponify some of the fats and stuff, and generally it only impacts it for aging. So if it's going to be like a white dog, it's not going to hurt at all. And in fact, a lot of people um, freeze a filter, to get a lot of those oils off for that, type of distillate like a white dog. Well, you know most all the answers, and I don't know them all, and you don't know them all, and when we don't, we'll jump on Google and we'll find you an answer, right? Because we know enough to know a right answer from a wrong, and there's a lot of misinformation out there, but we'll get you an answer. We don't profess to know it all, but we know most about it, most everything. But like, what's the diastatic power of penny rye? I don't know. I'd have to look all that shit up. I don't remember that stuff. I mean, at one point in time, I probably could have remembered most of the stuff, but I can't remember all that. I try to. Well, 20 ounce is it's a good, for 20 ounces is a good. I've got a roll of it in there that I'm going to do. It's probably good for a 30 gallon. Yeah, it. But if you do like a 50 or something above that, getting a little heavier probably be a good thing. Sometimes people will put a heavier ounce on the bottom and then do the lighter, sides and top, because that bottom seems to take a beating, and it's where the heat gets and it warps less. Um, so sometimes people use a little heavier gauge on that, on the bottom. But yeah, I've got some 20 in there that I'm gonna, build probably a 30 with, because I've got an 18 and a half, and then I've got 15, keg steels, and I got a little pony keg that I can use at thumper were steel, and got a couple of 80s, but those are just too big. I don't do those anymore. I don't do anything big anymore, and but something like a 30, and I could do a second run on the 18 and a half, or in a keg. That would work pretty well too. So I'll probably do a copper 30 and do some of the infusers, copper infuser chambers. Yeah. If you want your pH to stay, because it does drop fast on a lot of your, we were talking earlier when the guy was asking all the different materials that you need. Go to the feed store and buy. You can get 40 or 50 pound bags of this crushed. Um, it's crushed oyster shells, and they use it for chicken to help keep their calcium up for their egg production. So having that bag, and you can just boil them, clean them up real good. They say it's pure, but I don't trust them. Put it in water, boil it, set it out, let it dry, cool off, rinse them, and then put them in a little mesh bag or cheesecloth pouch or bag. You just lay out some cheesecloth, layer it a few times, put your oyster shells in there, crush it. It's got a little coral in there too, all calcium carbonate, and just tie it up in a little bag, and throw it in there, and it'll help buffer. It's something you want to add from the very beginning, though. It's not something you want to add when it crashes and gets low, because by then it's too late. It doesn't bring it up that quickly like a pickling lime or a baking soda would. But baking soda and pickling lime, not the best things, but it's better than stressing your yeast with pHs below 3. In the 3s, it's okay. Most yeast can handle it. To, like, as a question asked not too long ago, different yeasts are going to have different tolerances, but like a 3.2 3.2 to a 3.5. Most are tolerant down to that level, but when it gets below that, it starts to stress them. Now, bread yeast may not be as tolerant as a lot of the champagne or wine yeasts, and daty's probably not as tolerant as some of the rum yeast or those. But having that to help buffer your pH. But yeah, you can get your jar rigs and your columns, that exact column from Phil Billy, and that's definitely help him out because he's one that pays for the stream yards here. He makes it all possible. He's the militia, and so he does a lot for us. And he also has some good videos on how to, and not only does not only does he just sell these parts. If you want to build your own, he'll sit and tell you how to do it. And if you're having trouble, he'll make a video or already has a video that it'll refer you to teach you how to do your own. How many people do that? So yeah, he's a great guy. Yeah, the stainless definitely outlasts you copper. The copper you got, it's gonna, you're gonna have some acid eating away at it, so it's gonna dissolve and break down over time. Whereas the stainless is gonna be good for a long, long time. Yeah, what you do, and let me show you in this. Inside this football, there's an opening here. When you take this canister filter off or canister condenser off here, you can put your copper mesh inside here or your ashy greens, whatever you want to run. But yeah, you can put your copper mesh, pack this thing full of copper mesh, and it'll remove your sulfites that way. And really, as Clint and I were talking about earlier, you get more surface area forcing that vapor through that copper mesh than you get when it comes into contact with just like copper plumbing and a copper pot. So it's even if you have all copper, I'd still use copper mesh to help break down the sulfites, especially you can smell your musts and mashes, and it's just a part of fermentation to get some. And let me get that off there so people can see. It's just a part of the fermentation. Sometimes sulfides are created, and that rotten egg smell. It is a little bit stressed yeast. Sometimes it causes that usually, and sometimes you get that butyric acid concentration from stressed yeast, and it's just. Yeah, but yeah, sulfides, especially like dark fruits, tend to have a little more sulfides, just like the dark grapes and plums. I've noticed create a little bit more sulfides than white grapes or grains, but you can get it in any of them. And yeah, having that copper mesh, and make sure that you get 100% pure copper, because you don't want to get the copper plated steel stuff or these scrub brushes that are basically copper plated steel, because those things will break down and rust on you, and it'll run. So yeah, it definitely helps a lot. Or you could pack it in the column just the same. I always pack it here in this little sight glass. It comes in 5-inch pieces, so it'll fit from like right here. Well, you can't see my mouse, but from the top of that sight glass to the bottom, so you can basically fill that sight glass up with rolled up, you know, copper mesh, and just put it in there, and it'll sit there and eat up a lot of the sulfites. It's being forced through it, so it works out real well, and it'll do a good job for you. That's a good point. Yeah, if you didn't do that, you definitely would notice a difference in flavor between a copper pot and a stainless pot without that, for sure. So be sure when you do get a stainless pot and column like that to get that copper mesh and put it in there, especially when you start getting that sulfide smell. You have to have it, because that does carry over. Unfortunately, the worst stuff tends to carry over, and the good stuff doesn't most of the time. So, good question, good point. Yeah, and I've helped people in the past. I've helped for years and years doing this, and not just doing the videos, just in the groups. I mean, I was admin in some of the groups before I had a falling out with the group forum makers. But um, I'd see people come in and ask the most basic of questions, which everybody has the same questions, right? Most people, we repeat ourselves a lot on here, and we don't mind it because everybody tends to, all beginners and intermediates have the same questions, right? They pretty much want to know the same things. So we do repeat a lot of stuff. But I've had people that a few months ago I've taught stuff to, and now they're trying to make videos and answer questions and do all these things. Like, man, you you putting the cart before the horse a little bit there. You need to learn a bit more before you try to do that. And you can tell. You can tell when somebody's just trying to wing it. Yeah. Yeah. Me and Clint, I guess between us, we're almost 100 years between us. Over 80. So it's hard to find two people with over 80 years experience. Yeah, I agree, man. That mesh has a lot of surface area. I'm gonna try to get going. I got to get off here for too long. I've got to get everything together, and I got to get out of here early in the morning and drive to Tennessee and to Arkansas. So I got to be up about 7 in the morning. So I was tired too. I took a little nap before this started. I was a little weary eyed when I first started this. I need a drink. Nobody calling shots. Can you believe old Guppy said that? I thought that pretty cool fella. Wine, molasses. Well, that'd be interesting, brother. I've heard people buy box wine and run it. But yeah, it'd be pretty interesting to see 6 gallons of wine, which probably is almost good enough to run having alcohol wise. So, gallon molasses, 2 pounds of sugar. Yeah, you might need a little bit more water with that. I don't know. With a gallon of molasses and 2 pounds of brown sugar, the wine itself probably gonna be, I don't know, 6 or 8%, or I don't know. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Use a hydrometer. But yeah, that sounds good, man. Give her a try. But mixing the two, I don't know. The molasses and the rum flavors, I don't know if they'll overtake some of your wine flavors, and the cherries might be better to infuse those cherries. I don't know. It just try it. And but I like infusion now. That's the new thing is it imparts a lot of flavor. At a lot of the festivals, they have car shows, motorcycle shows, live bands, lots of crafts, folk art and crafts, and lots of beard products, but a lot of different things, lots of food, dancing, uh, moonshine stills and parts. Some places allow you to sell grains, other places won't. So, like at Maggie, they won't let us bring grains in, but we bring still parts in, and t-shirts and hats and merch, things like that, to help pay for the booths. And with the militia, a lot of times we collect a lot for charities. So we've always got some kind of thing going for charities. And like this weekend, they're doing t-shirts, and I'm selling the vests, and all profits. We cover our costs, but all the profits go to charity. And this is going to the Appalachian United Initiative that are helping people in the Helene victims, still helping them rebuild houses and stuff. Those people are great. I mean, they're doing a lot of good work. and they've got some other people. We got, Helene Rising and some other people that they're dedicating a lot of time and money and not keeping anything. Beauty of this is nobody keeps administrative fees and money on the top, and 10-20% goes to the actual charity, and the rest get eaten up by administrative fees and all this bullshit. 100% of all the profits, with the people that we deal with, go directly to the victims, and that's what they need, because um, we've done a lot of good, though. We've done a lot of help, but a lot of good things. Different festivals will have different things. A lot of times it's music and moonshine, or car shows, and motorcycle shows, and crafts and arts and crafts and food. But they're a lot of fun, and depending on the place, a little bit of moonshine here and there, but got to be careful. They're definitely watching for it. So a lot of times that comes after the festival at the motels or the campsites, and during the summer, a lot of us will camp. We'll tent camp. Some people have campers, and Ann and I, we do tent camping. We like tent camping and getting out there, and it's a lot of fun. But you sit around the campfire and tell a lot of stories, talk about shining, answer questions still, and pass around, eat. Everybody brings their finest jar to share, and we have some competitions sometimes off the side, brandy competitions and stuff, and it's a lot of fun, a lot of fellowship and fun. Have a good time. Yeah, it's with the copper, you got some extra maintenance, that come along with it. Today, most people are going with stainless and using the mesh or copper plumbing and the mesh, because they found that really the mesh works probably the best. But copper, does heat really evenly and gives good even heating, and it'll remove some on a copper vessel. But is it worth the maintenance and the upkeep? To some, it is, and I mean they're beautiful to look at. They're traditional, and they are the best, hands down, if you don't consider maintenance, into that equation. But once you consider maintenance and everything, some people don't mind it. Some people, like me, I'm getting too damn old to get shit done that I need to get done. That's just another thing to do. So, but yeah, when you get the green or the bluish green in there, it's ruined. You can't drink that. It's toxic. So you got that to deal with in copper as well. So, um, and John, if you go to Fieldbilly Moonshine, you don't have to take notes. You can list this over and over and over. All these they're on the website. Just go to Fieldbilly Moonshine on YouTube and go to live, and you can watch all these past episodes. Go back, watch some of those past episodes. We've done some episodes from beginning to end. I didn't name them properly so people could easily index them, and I'm going to try to do better on that. But we need to do another one of those again, Clint. So we're going to probably, maybe this weekend I'm going to be gone. Maybe next week or week after, we'll do another beginning to end video where we just basically not take as much questions unless it's as we're in the stage, but we'll talk about how to do things from the very get-go of selecting your grain to, whether to crush, you know, uh, grind or crack, or what size, and then cooking it, what amylase to use, what works best. If you use the other stuff, what you got to do. I'm trying to do that also in my little recipe thing, but it's kind of drawn out, I need to make it a little easier to understand, so I'm working on that. But we'll do another how to and start from beginning to end. But watch some of the past episodes on fieldbillymoonshine.com or Moonshine Militia on YouTube. Both of them are on YouTube and have most all the past episodes. And if you want to, oh, I got you, Richard. All right, 6.5 gallons of water. All right. I was gonna say, man, that wine with that, now that would be pretty interesting. But I do the same thing when I'm reading something and thinking something. I end up typing what I'm reading and not what I'm thinking. I got you, bro. But yeah, that would be good. Let me go back and look. Actually, that would be just perfect. Oh, lost my spot. Here we go. But yeah, you can watch the past ones. So, you know, do take notes. It's good to take notes, and definitely any of these charts and stuff. If you want to find them, we've got them on the website on our file section. If you just go to the group pages, Moonshine Militia on Facebook or DIY Shine and Stuff on Facebook, in the file section at the top. Just click on files and go through some of those files. You find a few recipes. I think I put the in the DIY page. We got the old claw hammer recipe book that has quite a few recipes in it that are pretty decent. I tried to not put a lot of recipes that I haven't tried. I'll look at them to see if they've got pretty sound right, and I'll include those. So sometimes I'm putting recipes on there that I haven't tried. So, you know, it might be hit or miss with some of those. Yeah, I like having that deflagmator. That deflagmator gives you so much control and on the reflux, and you know I can go anywhere from like 135 to 185. Actually, at 187, and I didn't try to. I could have probably used a little colder water and got, you know, into the 190s, low 190s with just that. But yeah, I love the deflagmators. They help a lot, but they do compress things too. So they tend to compress tails, and which can be a good thing or bad thing depending on how you look at it. Oh, I'd say he's probably already answered that. Let's see. Hello, Miss Tammy. I was wondering about you. I hadn't seen you chime in yet. I was worried. I was like, "Where's Tammy tonight?" I hadn't seen her. What's up, brother? How's it going, Kenny? Good to see you in here, brother. I think white lightning is, you know, a moonshiner's term, and white dog is a distiller's term. White dog comes, I guess it comes from way back when, but exactly how it got that name, I've never really researched that, but I'm gonna Google it because I gotta know too. We'll use a little AI. We'll go deep on AI to get this answer. It comes from the pioneering origins. Early American explorers who drank the whiskey straight from the still. The resulting distillate was clear, unaged, which led to the nickname White Dog. So it was probably named White Dog about the same time it got the name Moonshine. I thought it was more of a distiller's term, but I stand corrected. Yeah, today craft distilleries produce White Dog, and yeah, back with call it Moonshine. So yeah. All right. So white refers to the color of it. Dog refers to the bite. And you know, you've heard the moniker "hair of the dog that bit you." So I think all of those come from old pioneer times. It's funny we think that's kind of a modern thing, but actually they're pretty old. So that'd be from the 15, 16, 1700s when the pioneers and stuff were coming in before we became a country. So interesting. That's something I've never, quite looked at. Good question. We all learned something tonight. Damn, I'm glad. Glad you asked that. I've never really thought to look it up. I just always thought it was more of a distiller's term, whereas moonshine was a shiner's term, and white dog was something that just distillers kind of called it to get away from that moonshine moniker. You know, you want to get away from that stereotype if you're a distiller. All right, let's move along here. I gotta try to wrap this up. I gotta get out of here early tonight, folks. But yeah, I didn't even see it, Clint. But yeah, I guess bite, dog from the bite. So it's white from the color and the dog from the bite. A white dog gonna bite you. And I don't know, but I don't want to give that answer. Well, back in the slave days, they used white shepherds, to track slaves and stuff that got away. And back then, the bite of a white dog, there was a thing amongst the blacks that was feared. They feared those white shepherds, man, because that's what a lot of times would track them down. And I thought maybe it might come from something like that too, but I didn't want to go to that dark place. Hey, brother, I appreciate it, man. And everybody hit that like button and definitely subscribe to Philbilly Moonshine and go to philbillymoonshine.com and check out his website. A lot of different things that you can buy, from your grains to a lot of your materials and things that you need. Steel parts. If he doesn't have it on there, he can custom make about anything. Him and Ian do a good job. And I think old Sam Man helps them out a little bit on some of their stuff too. He helps pick up some of their load. They tend to get busy, but they're not real far behind. So you're not going to be, next year getting something, that you're paying for today. Like some people are so far behind. And instead of just saying, now most of the good steel builders and most of the ones that are amongst our community, when they get so far behind, and they'll let somebody know, it's going to be 6, 8 months before we can get this to you. I know Tracy not as far behind as I am right now, or Adam or Phil Billy or somebody else. I know they're might not be as far as behind as we are. You can get it probably about the same price or a little quicker. They are, a lot of the good builders, we're all family, so they'll recommend each other, and when they get behind, they'll tell you, if you really need it quick, they'd rather you do that than get mad and make comments. Here it's been 6 months. They told me it'd be 5.5. And get those kind of complaints. Sometimes it's better just to send them and get them taken care of quicker, because you don't want people out there complaining, but people are going to complain. Yeah, especially the milkier the mash that you put in there, because it takes an hour to heat up. And so you kind of, you can keep that cap off and stir it, and where you can just move your steel around a little bit until it gets hot. You can't touch it anymore. But make sure you leave yourself plenty of time to get your cap on and get your tri-clamps and everything tightened down. But yeah, if you get some in there that's got some particulates. Now, one thing you definitely don't want to do is pour that in there, let it sit for a while, and then go strike it up and strike up the heat. Once it gets the boiling point and gets rolling, and gets a little bit of movement, it won't. You can even distill on the grain when it's like that, like in the submarine pots. They kind of tend to be a little bit better for that, because they circulate water a little better, or the mash a little bit better in there. But yeah, it's not a must, but if you have something that's milky and it's got a lot of particulates in there, and if you're worried about them settling to the bottom before you can get it up to, especially if you've got a pot that takes a long time, and if it takes an hour and a half before it gets up to temp, a lot can settle out in an hour and a half. So you don't want it settling out and then being on the bottom where that heat is and getting a little bit of scorch. It won't scorch like, using scorched corn or something like that, but it will create an off flavor that's not going to be very good. So yeah, I mean, some places even put agitators in there where it just keeps it stirred up for you. Most craft distillers have agitators in there just for that purpose, just to keep it off the bottom, and you run a lot less runs that way. And for what little it costs to add that agitator on there for them and that big steel, and you fuck up a 500-gallon run, it's a big deal versus a 10-gallon run. So for them, having that agitator definitely pays off, and it just keeps things, up off the bottom. Big question. Yeah, yeah, and you can help us with the beer. I mean Clint too. He knows more beer, but when it comes to beer, old Santa, I get real quiet when people start talking about beer making, because that's something I'm not done. So if you hear me quiet, you're talking about something I'm trying to learn about. That's about the only time I shut up. So if you want to get me quiet, talk about something I don't know, and I'll get all quiet and I'll listen. But yeah, we try to work together and help each other, and it's good that the steel builders do that as well. Well, I'm glad you like it, man. We're here on Wednesdays, every Wednesday and every Saturday at 8 Eastern, and bring your questions. I mean, from beginning to end, we'll help you, and we've got some people that are just getting started, and so we're going to do a show beginning to end. So we'll go over everything, and we'll make us a list of all the materials that we can think of that you're going to need, and this is not a have to. Again, you don't have to use amylase. You can use malts, and you don't have to have pH. You can wing it. You don't have to have temperature. You can just use your finger as a probe. You don't have to have, a lot of these things, but they certainly help and make things better. And anytime you can improve on it, make little improvements. In a lot of places, you make a major improvement, right? That's the way I look at it. So every little bit that you can chisel away and improving, you combine all those together, it makes a pretty substantial improvement. So all these little things that you can do to make it better at the end make it a lot better. A lot of people don't realize that it snowballs. So all the little things that you can do to make it better can make it a lot better by the time you add them all up. Out of the copper, once you're done, you can just rinse it out, and if you want to, you can boil it, and then you can put it in some vinegar, or some citric acid, and it'll eat it off and clean it up for you, and then just rinse that off. You don't want to soak it too long, but eat it all up. But yeah, it'll clean it up for you pretty well. And then after, you can get, you know, maybe half a dozen uses out of a little bit of copper that you roll up and put in there, and then discard it, or okay, I guess they recycle it. It's pretty lightweight, but yeah, you just roll you up another one and put it in there. You can buy them. I think it comes in like 5 inch by 35 feet. And I mean, you're only using maybe a few feet at a time when you roll it up. So you get quite a bit out of those $30 rolls or $25 rolls, so you'll get quite a few runs out of each before you have to clean them up. Yeah, we're going to try to wrap it up here. You said that at 10:07. I'm 22 minutes behind, so I'm going to scroll through here and make sure. Yeah, now the vest that I've got, I can't put the 3-piece on. We've got some members that were ex MC, and they're afraid somebody's going to get hurt wearing them. But let's see if I've got one handy here. The other vest, let me show you this one. This is the vest, and I don't know how well you can see that. And this is the 3-piece that I've got. Now, you can't buy them together. I'm going to sell these separately, and I'm going to sell them on, and if people want to put them on there, we'll have to make sure. Let me make sure everybody gets to see that. It's pretty cool. It's multicolored, and there's a lot of detail. And that AR-15, you wouldn't believe that just the thickness, they added detail to that gun. So normally it's just, monogrammed on there or whatever. But this has like depth and shows detail in the actual parts. They're pretty awesome. But some feel rightfully that if we sell those as a vest like that, there's going to be people buy it that don't quite understand what a three-piece and a vest means. Now, it doesn't say MC. It doesn't have a home turf or a location on it or anything like that. So most it doesn't say 1% or any of that. So most clubs wouldn't think anything about it because it doesn't say MC and it doesn't have all that. But there's always that one person, or that group that may have a problem with it. So we don't want just every member buying it and not really understanding what they've got and end up being in a position where they, might have to defend themselves or, get it taken away from them, by a group of bikers or something like that. So I'm not going to sell the vests with the three-piece on it. And I'm not going to sell the three-piece as I sell the vest. You'll be able to buy them separately. If you want a three-piece, you can contact me and I'll sell you the patch kit, and you assume your own responsibility. I am going to put them on some bomber jackets. If some, let me show you the jacket. Some lightweight bomber jackets like this. Pretty nice. And I'll have that on there. Just a basic, lightweight jacket. That'll look pretty nice on that as well. And that's something that we'll be able to sell to everybody because it's not on a cut. It's not on a vest. It's not on a cut. So yeah, I do. I've got Get Up With Me. I've got Zelle, so you can pay me through Zelle or PayPal for the patch kit, and we can take care of it. I was doing it for 75, but I was shipping those out regular mail, and some people had issues getting there, so I'm gonna have to probably charge 80, and that's basically just me making $10, and but I'm going to do it to where I can track shipping because I've sold a couple and one person hasn't gotten theirs yet. It was a little bit slower, but I guess I'm just going to have to send them with tracking. It's kind of a mistake on my part, but I'll make it right. He'll get his, and lesson learned. So. But yeah, we're going to put them on those, and I think just putting, selling the patch kits and letting people decide what they want to put it on. Some people want to put it on hoodies, which would be cool, and I don't want to deal in sizing. That's the issue. So if I ship somebody, they say it's XL, and they get it, and it's like, this is too tight for me, man. I need an XXL, I guess, and it's going to be tough to, pay for shipping back and then get another one and ship it out to them. And but my margins are really low. I'm not, really not trying to make any money on it per se. It's just kind of, I wanted everybody to have something cool and we could be a group together. But Kate said I'm not going to sell it on the vest because I promised those that were concerned about it that I wouldn't. We're not going to do the cuts. If you want to buy the patches and put it on a vest, just please understand that it's where and how you should wear that, and be careful. Don't go to some bike rally with it on. Don't go to a bar where there's a bike club pretty much hangs and it's theirs, unless you know them, of course. And hell, most of the people that bought it, in fact, everybody that's bought one so far is in a club, so they know what they're getting. But there's always going to be some that don't, and I don't want anybody, and that's why I really haven't been pushed them, and I don't want anybody buying one and not really understanding what they got and wearing it and getting hurt. So I do understand the concerns, and I'm respecting that and their wishes not to just sell the vest with the cut. But at the same time, we can't tell grown ass men what they can and can't do, but we can there's some people that might not quite understand and maybe a little naive and not know exactly what that means and stands for. But yeah, yeah, that's fine, brother. And in fact, I mean, we're gonna get you suited up, man. Uh, for some of these shows, like if I'm off at a festival or something, like I am Saturday, you'll be able to, jump on here. I'll get you. I'll open up StreamYards, get you on here, and get you going, and be able to go to the festival and do my thing, and you can do the show and shut it down when you're done. So that's something that we're going to be able to do in the future, and that will definitely be helpful. And there's going to be some times when I don't feel good or just not feeling up to it, and you can take over. So yeah, not a problem at all, bro. Copper mesh, I get mine off of Amazon. I think Phil probably has it too. But yeah, make sure it says 100% pure copper though when you're buying it. Cool. No, you don't need to vinegar run on the stainless. Copper bubble plates, yeah, and anything that might have flux on it, I would, most of the flux these days water soluble, so the hot water should get rid of it. But I like running water, I like running acid, and also I like rinsing things in alcohol. So I'll and I didn't think alcohol would have a big impact on stainless, but buy a Vever when you buy any pot, any even for cookware, but buy a Vever and clean it up with Dawn dishwasher and get it all good and clean. And then go get a white rag, your real white rag, wet it down with some heads or some isopropyl alcohol, whatever, and rub that stainless real good. Clean that stainless real good on the inside of that pot and rub it with some elbow grease and get into it a little bit. And then look at that thing, man, and you'll see a lot of gray buildup on it. So I don't know if it's polishing compounds that's pulling off there, probably, and buffing compounds and stuff. So, yeah, there's a little extra cleaning to be done, and it certainly helps. Yeah, I like doing the alcohol runs for sure, and or just cleaning it good with alcohol. But those stainless parts, there's buffing compounds that water and vinegar don't touch, so that alcohol will help break them down sometime. Yeah, I'll Google it, man. I ain't too proud. There's a lot of people that just their egos won't allow them to say, "I don't know," man. It just tears them up to just tell somebody, "I don't know," because that's some big ego to I can feel, man. There's a lot I don't know, man. I don't mind Googling it to get your answer. Like if I don't know it, I'm glad to learn it. So I'm glad you asked the question that we're both learning something. Like the white dog. I never really thought about checking where the origins of that came from. I assumed, but yeah, it was good to see. pH for your mash. Yep, 5253. Yeah, you got them already, brother. I'm scrolling through, making sure everything's good. Yeah, I've got Zelle and I've got PayPal. So if anybody is interested in that, you can let me know on here. But you need to message me on Facebook, and I can give you that information. Um, so if you can find me on in the Moonshine Militia, I'm an admin there, or DIY Shining Stuff, I'm an admin in there. So either of those places you can find me. I'm an admin in Rock Gut and a few others. So um, Yeah, just find me, send me a message, and let me know where you saw it and that you're interested in buying a patch kit. And yeah, and exactly. Yeah, it looked great on the varsity jacket. Okay, Tammy. Yeah, I'll get up with you. Uh, you can use Zelle, or you can use PayPal, or you can mail me a check. I'll give you my address and mail me a check, and after it clears, I'll ship it out. 5.2 is what the stable's called. But a lot of wine places and places I go to say 5.3, so that's kind of the argument, I guess, when it gets that close. Can you really tell? I don't know. It's some people get a little bit too anal when it comes to that. You got the 5.3 group, and then you got the 5.2ers, and it's like, man, and some of these groups they go at it over 5.2 or 5.3, and it's like, I guarantee you I could make a wine that started out as 5.2 or 5.3, and you couldn't tell me how it started. I don't care who you are. So yeah, I'll be in Clinton, and I will have the vest down there. I won't have the patch kits though, because I can't sell them at the same time. I promised that I wouldn't, but I will be selling the vests, and yeah, it's tough. But I'll be selling the vest down there, and 100% of the profits from the vests are going to go to, and I'm selling out the vests. What happened was I planned on doing all these vests and putting the patch kits on it and selling them as merch, and we had some NCers that are admins in the groups. Is like, I'm afraid we're going to get somebody hurt. That does that. Somebody's going to buy it not knowing what the hell they're doing or wearing, and they're going to run into some 1%ers, and they're going to run their mouth, and they're going to get their shit kicked, and it's just not going to be good. And I agree. So I want to make sure that the people get it, know what they're doing and what they have. And so far, we've been doing good at that because everybody that's bought it either is in an MC 1% or was. So that's good. So I don't want anybody, not really understanding what they have. But if you have it on a varsity jacket or a bomber jacket, and somebody still no MC, no, any of that, they're just being a dick, and chances are they're going to start some shit with you over something else, or just the way you look or something like that anyway. So but I've talked to the outlaws about it, and talked to some enforcers, and they basically they looked at it, said, I don't see an MC patch, I don't see a 1% diamond, I don't see any location turf, thing. So most people shouldn't have any issues with it. We don't. And I mean, that dude didn't speak for the whole nation, but he spoke for the state, and but most won't. But there's always going to be, some little prospect that wants to show his ass and be somebody and try to take somebody's cut that was wearing it in their territory so they can get some brownie points from it. And they probably get laughed at when they walk in with that. It doesn't say MC 1% or nothing on it, but yeah, that'd be fine, Tammy. I'll send that to you on for sure, and on Facebook. Yeah. I thought he's saying, is that me going to Clinton, Clinton, Arkansas? Yeah. So I finally made it to the end, and it's almost 10:45. I guess I'm doing good, better than usual. Nah, most won't. Most, unless you're a dick, If they walk up to you and they say, "Man, what's up? What kind of what group is that?" or what kind of group you got going there, And you say, "What's it to you, bud?" Then yeah, you're probably gonna, you're gonna escalate things, and you're probably gonna get your shit kicked. But if you just, oh, we're militia, we've got a lot of MC members, tell people what we do and recruit. Don't try to be a dick, recruit from it, say we got a lot of 1%ers in the group, we're militia, and we're all patriots, and we believe in moonshine, and proud to be an American, and that's what we're all about. And most of them wouldn't have a problem with that, and if they do, they can always just say, well, I'm sorry, well, I'll take it off and till I get out of your area here, or till I leave your bar. I didn't know this was your bar. And really, a lot of bars don't like you wearing colors there in there anyway. But yeah, I promised that I wouldn't sell the cuts, assembled, and I wouldn't sell the cut and the patch kit together. But I did buy all these vests to do that, and I had them too long where I couldn't return them. So I'm just going to sell the vests off as vests. And if somebody wants to, pick up the patch kit later, they can. But with each patch kit, I probably, if find out who I'm dealing with, and if they don't understand, I'll try to explain the significance and you know how to wear it with pride, and also how to act when others, ask about it. So got to be cool. Don't be a dick. They don't take well to that. Right. Yeah, most find it's either funny or they're like, hell, I want one too. They're like, that's cool as shit, man. They see the jacket and they see the patch, like, fuck yeah, I want one. Because it is cool. Or they'll think it's funny that people get all mad about it. Or some people might, some MCers might say, well, you know, don't you think you're posing? And probably a little, but I still think it's cool as fuck. It's but it's not an MC. And there's a lot of car clubs, that have them without MC patches. And there's just so many out there these days. I just think it's getting harder and harder and harder for him to really have an issue with it, especially if it doesn't have MC, 1% diamond, and location. Any of those, you put any of those with it, then turf might become an issue. Or, oh, an MC, huh? Wearing that in our, or 1% patch, in another, that can. Is it? Oh man, in a month. Well, I'm Santa, but I don't bring all the gifts. Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, you're always going to have a prospect that thinks he's going to get some brownie points for taking your cut back to the club. So yeah, just be careful about where you wear them. Wear them responsibly. Yeah, we're at Moonshine Club. Oh my God, MC Moonshine Club. We can't say that, can we? That's MC. Oh, that's funny. All right, y'all. Well, we're gonna get out of here. I guess if y'all follow Clint over to YouTube, and if you got any more questions, you can go there or take the conversation there and have a few shots on me, and we'll miss you this Saturday. We won't be up. I didn't get everything done in time, but I'm gonna get Clint on here and get him set up to where I can open up the stream yards for him. It only allows so many admins, and it's already peaked. We're only allowed 4 people, and it's me, Tom Damon, and Phil Billy that do it. And the stream yards what we paid for only allows for the ones we have. So, but I can start it and then let him take over, and then I can do my thing because it only takes like a couple of minutes to open it up, send him a link, get him in here, and then he can run the show from there on out. So we'll get him doing that. We'll get him used to the controls and yeah, we have to try the MS club. Yeah. Then a lot of people with multiple sclerosis are going to be coming after us. Well, you making fun of us? We're going to whoop you. Yeah, you. There's Karens and Kens all over the places these days. You're going to have people that aren't even in a club. What are you wearing colors for in my community? Man, it's just everybody's a dick these days, man. Can't avoid it. It is funny as shit, ain't it? But yeah, but I got to get rid of these vests, so I'm gonna sell them. All the profits go to the Helene victims, so that's gonna do good, and I'll get rid of them, and I don't get stuck with them. But I'm just going to sell the patch kits and the bomber jackets if you want it adhered. Hopefully the iron-on, they're iron-on or sew-on. And I found that trying to sew those onto leather like those, wow, man, try to do that. I mean, let's see. I've got this needle here, man. I got these big ass thick needles. You probably see it some bitch a mile away. I mean, it ain't even sharp. I mean, it's the points, they're so big, the points aren't real sharp, but it takes like something like that to go through leather. And I've got a whole new appreciation for people that sew, especially through thick stuff like that. So I guess I'm gonna have to take it to some kind of place that's got a serger or something that'll do it for 20 bucks or so per vest if I'm lucky. Because I found that it's going to take many, many hours to do it by hand. Because I'm having to use this little hammer here, peck, 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 and peck it through the leather. Because I guess if I had some sort of thimble, but I ain't got no thimble or nothing like that thick enough to push it through. So yeah. All right, y'all. Well, I'm gonna get out of here. Y'all have a great week and a great weekend. Those that can meet us down there in Clinton, Arkansas, come on down for the Moonshine and Music Festival. I think I'm going to be there. Damon's going to be there. Big Easy's going to be there. Sean Rigsby, hopefully Big Chuck. Shoot, who all? Wayne from Ozark's going to be there. So there'll be a lot there represent. Maybe probably Toby. Hopefully Toby, because he's from those parts. Hopefully Toby will be there. So there'll be a lot of us there to help come meet and visit and greet and talk to. So you'll get to see a lot of us regulars there. No, I've been really careful about that. I've been nailing it into this board here, and just laying it down and putting the vest. But you have to lay it this way and hammer one way, and then flip the damn thing over and hammer and try to get through the other side just in the right spot so it's eyeballing. And man, I did a little bit last night trying to get this vest ready. I'm making a vest for the admins because we all understand and so, but it's tough. It's especially this. There's two different vests. The ones I'm selling are a little bit thinner, but these are the ones I bought first, and they are freaking heavy, thick. They're really a good vest for a motorcycle rider that if you wrecked in would protect you. The other ones are a little thinner and softer, and probably most people would consider nicer that don't ride a bike. But the ones that do, they would definitely appreciate the thickness of these vests. They're very solid, and I think they're buffalo leather. So yeah, they're pretty thick. Yeah, this is some thick, tough stuff. It's for riding. This is a biker. Actually, it is biker, and the other ones are made by the people that make a lot of MMA punching bags and punching gloves and all that stuff. Trying to think of the name of them off the top of my head, and I can't. But I can't think of the name of them. But anyway, they make a lot of punching bags and MMA stuff. Damn, these spiders dropping down. That's crazy. It's freaky. It's that time of year, man. All of them come inside and mate. All right, y'all. Good seeing everybody. Have a great weekend. Clint, take it easy, brother. We will get up with you. I'll try to get up with you this weekend. I might try to do a little live remote. I'm sure Damon and I'll probably try to do something. It'll probably go through the militia. And so it might not be at 8, so it might be a little earlier during the day. We're probably going to do a little streams here and there, a little live, and depending on who we run into, we may have some movie stars, some singers and shit on there. We got this one gal from The Voice going to be on there, Pumpkin Chunker. Man, I can't wait to see all that shit. But anyway, peace out, y'all, and have a great week and weekend. We will see you all back here Wednesday, and might just plan on doing. Clint, you want to do a beginning to end? Maybe we can do a beginning to end on Wednesday for a lot of the newbies. So a lot of you guys that tuned in tonight or that are watching this later, which most people do. I mean, we probably broadcast this to live. We get about 7 or 8% watch this live, and the other 90% plus watch it later in the week or at their convenience later. So that's cool to see. I'd like to have more live participation, but it's as much as we can deal with almost with the questions. Sometimes it gets a little slow, and sometimes we get pounded, and that's good. But yeah, we're gonna do a grain mash. Just a all corn beginning to end. Just a all corn with little as sugars you need using amylase. So, and we're going to talk about everything that you need to have and go over the different stills and try to answer a lot of questions. And it'll be a good. The last time I did it, I didn't title the show so people could when they scroll through because they all look the same, right? Distiller question and answers, and they say the same thing. So maybe on this one, um, I can say how to beginning to end, or simple mash beginning to end, or all grain beginning to end, or something like that, and we'll do just a how to from the very get go to the very end, and all the steps you need to do, and if you follow them to the T, you'll end up with a good result, but it's kind of scientific. The temperatures have to be close. I don't know how many people say, well, I followed your instructions and it didn't come out good. I'm like, well, and it got stuck. I'm like, really? Well, what temperature? Well, now the temperature did get a little bit lower than normal. And I'm like, oh, did you use the yeast starter? No, I didn't use the yeast starter, and that yeast was a little bit old. It's like then they start back and tracking, and they didn't follow my instructions exactly. But if you can follow them as closely as possible, I know sometimes temperatures don't permit, but there has to be a range of temps, and if you're outside that range, you're going to stick. It's going to stick on you. It's going to go slow, which isn't a bad thing. It's just a time-consuming thing. So, and most people these days they're in a hurry. Once that instant gratification, kind of like those answers. Um, but yeah, most people, if I think. I think Mash Brothers is on the in the they're in the militia, so you can probably find them on there and chat on there. And once you find them on there, you probably can. Yeah, I use those inside when I do it. I get those little oil filled. I've got oil filled radiators that I use, little space heaters, and I'll put them right in between 3 or 4 barrels, and they'll keep those barrels just perfect temp, man. And every day or two, I'll go in and rotate the barrels. That way, they don't have a warm side, and try to spread it out a little bit and try not to stir it too much and disturb it. But seed mats work. It depends on how big a fermenter. It's there's going to be limitations, but yeah, if you got seed mats, I'm not going to ask what else you use those for. I've got some too. But yeah, and some people, I mean, I've seen people use waterbed warmers and wrap it around big, mash barrels and works great. There's a lot of ways to do it. Fish tank heaters, I've seen that a lot too, and I've seen a lot of issues with it, and when they drop them down, it gets into that grain and stuff, and it just scorches your shit. So yeah, I'm not so big on those, but I know a lot of people use them. But yeah, the oil field coolers, or the heaters in between the barrels, if you're using, the big blue barrels and stuff, those work pretty well. It depends on how cold. I'm inside, like a basement where it's pretty cool, but outside they're not going to work. It's not going to work if it's real damn cold. Oh, Dan's getting here right as we shut down. Damn it, Dan. Thanks for tuning in, brother, but we just about ready to go. But you can, as soon as we're done, you can rewind it and watch the show, which most people do. But good seeing everybody. And no, you didn't run me off, Dan. Don't feel bad. But we were just getting ready to tune out, and I'm glad you got in here. And just you can watch the show. We had a pretty good show. A lot of good questions asked and answered. So hopefully everybody that watches it will pick up on something they didn't know. And if not, we're going to do a beginning to end this next Wednesday, so be prepared for that. And we're going to, take notes. I guess Clint's going to make notes of everything he does and the steps that he does it. I'm going to do the same, and we're going to compare notes, and we'll put together a beginning to end kind of thing for next Wednesday, this coming Wednesday at 8 Eastern. So tune in for that, and And try to catch us on some live streams this Saturday and Friday and Saturday. We're going to be in Clinton doing some live streams and stuff. So, um, Dan, are you on in the militia or on the DIY? Because yeah, yeah, heater belts. Yeah, there's a lot of things. A lot of a lot of those used for keeping oils from coagulating, keeping barrels warm, steel barrels warm and stuff. Um, yeah, I'm not able to right now, Dan. Clint can answer every question that you got just like I can. So if you can get up with him, I've got to leave out like at 7:30 in the morning, and I got to be up early, and I got to get all my stuff together to go to a festival in Arkansas this weekend. So I'm not going to be able to handle it. I apologize, but Clint can answer any question that I can. So get up with Clint, and he's on YouTube as well. And if not, join the militia and or the DIY shine and stuff. And you can find Clint. He's a ad or a moderator in the DIY shine and stuff page. So you can find him real easy by just clicking members at the top, and it'll show all admins and moderators. And get up with Clint that way. If he can't find you on YouTube, appreciate it. Y'all take it easy. I'm out of here. It's after 11. It's good seeing everybody, and everybody have a great week and weekend. Shine on, and we will see you all maybe this weekend doing some remotes. If not, we'll see y'all this time, same place, same time next Wednesday. Shine on. Take care. Peace out. Love y'all.